Want to be happy? Build a life, not just a business. Hey, it's Evan Carmichael, and this channel was created to help you overcome the #1 challenge that is holding you back, a lack of belief in yourself. You watch these videos because you know there's something more inside you too. You've got Michael Jordan level genius at something. So today, let's live your best belief life and get some incredible motivation from the one and only John Assaraf. Enjoy.
There's a misconception that business is easy. And I have a lot of clients of mine, for example, that are doctors and lawyers and professionals that have an expertise in a certain area. But nobody's ever taught them about finance, about legal, if they're not a lawyer, about marketing, about sales, about technology, about operations, about management. And being an entrepreneur is like solving a Rubik's Cube.
Yes, I see that.
Right? So you can have the 2x2 with 2 colors, it's easy. If you want a little bit bigger business, that's 3x3. There's more combinations and more things that need to be considered. 4x4 now has billions of different moves. Just 4x4 is billions of different possibilities.
Wow.
When you get to the 8x8 or 16x16 Rubik's Cube, there's quintillions of possible moves that you can make. So building a business is all about recognizing patterns and knowing which move to make at the right time. And there's 4 options that you have. 1 is do it yourself and try and figure it out. 2 is get help. 3, get it done for you. Or 4, don't do it. Did you know that some of the most recent studies on setting goals and writing them out or typing them out on your computer will actually increase your chances of achieving those goals by up to 42%? Why? Well, as soon as you put the energy to writing out your goals and getting clarity, you're giving your brain the instruction that this is what's important to you. This is what you want to achieve. So don't be like all the other people where they have goals and dreams and they hope and pray for it to work. Be the type of person who sets her goals or his goals in writing and then focus on that every day and you'll achieve more of your goals. There's something in the weight loss industry field called a fat set point. And every brain has a fat set point. And it basically states that you have a set point, just like a thermostat that's programmed in a room to have a set point. We have fat set points. We have financial set points. We have relationship set points. We have these set points that we become accustomed to achieving. And then all of the supporting evidence, the stories, the themes, the plot lines, the perceptions and behaviors all must match the set point. And so you can ask yourself 2 questions. Number 1 is, how did that set point get there? And then how do I change it? Right? So how it got there is through all of your conditioning, through what you've read, what you've done, what you've experienced, what you've been told, what you've seen. All of that has created your financial set point based on your story. And so the first thing to recognize is the set point can be changed. And the question is how? Right? And that's the $1 million question. So number 1, what drives behavior more than anything else? It's not skill. It's not knowledge. Skill and knowledge is potential power, but what does drive behavior more than anything else is beliefs. And so if there is a belief in the brain that says, yes, I think I'm capable of achieving double my income. We'll just use double my income. But there's another belief that opposes that. That causes what we know as neural dissonance. So it creates a chaotic vibration in the brain between the conscious and non-conscious mind. So the key is to get alignment between the new goal, which is a conscious pattern of thought that you can choose in an instant, and the non-conscious part of the brain around that goal. So how do you develop a belief, right? So it's a pattern. So if I gave you a sentence and you said that sentence 1 time, you probably, great, it'd be a sentence like one. I was like hearing a line in a song 1 time. But if you heard a line in a song repeatedly 20, 30, 40, 50 times, and you had other associations with that to reinforce that pattern, then you would start to develop a non-conscious pattern through that. So we know that using, let's say, visualization, you're actually bypassing the conscious mind and you're accessing the visual cortex of the brain. It's a non-conscious process, the visual processor. And so if we take words and we affirm them and we feel them and we visualize them and repeat them 100, 200, 500, 1,000 times, now we start to create a pattern at the non-conscious level that basically reinforces a conscious desire. Every level of success that you want to achieve in health, wealth, relationships, career, business, etc., requires a new understanding of a skill and a new behavioral pattern. What got you to where you are is not enough to get you to where you want to go. Why do I say that? Because if it was enough to get you to where you want to go, you would already be there. So what got you here will not get you there. Maybe some stepping stones, but every level of success requires a new level of skill and behavior. And I'm going to go back to one of the other lessons. Since we develop beliefs and habits and behaviors that go from conscious effort to non-conscious habits, in order to achieve the next level of success, you have to learn how to create new habits of thought, new emotional management skills, and new behaviors to match the level of success that you want to achieve. I'm always looking for consistency around all of my content. Does that make sense to you? If it makes sense, just tell me, John, that makes total sense. So far we have, define what your brand stands for. If your brand could speak, what would your brand say about you, right? If your brand could speak, what would your brand say about you? Is your brand fast? Is your brand slow? Is your brand lackadaisical, where it's just free flow, Bahamian, or is it more, more sharp edges? So you have to think about this. And if you're looking to build a personal brand, then you need to think about, what does my brand stand for? What do I want people to think and feel about my personal brand, so that I own some space, in their brain? So let me ask you a question. Let's have a little bit of fun. When I share with you the personal brand, Oprah, what do you feel about the brand? What do you feel about the brand? Is it a brand that you trust? Is it a brand that is fast or calm? Like, what do you feel when you hear the word Oprah? Or what do you feel when you hear the brand Elon Musk? Right? What does it make you feel? Because every brand develops consistency, and the consistency creates a feeling, and people gravitate towards how a brand makes them feel, right? Does a brand make you feel appreciated, that you can trust it, that it's safe, or that it's risky? Like Elon Musk is a risk taker, right? He's a different brand than Oprah, and yet he's got a huge following. He will make a comment, and cryptocurrency goes through the roof, right? So what does your brand stand for? Not having a sales process. What does that mean? So let me share with you just a sales process. So you need to think in systems, right? If this and this and this and this happens, then X is predictable. So let's say you are going to do a Instagram Live, Facebook Live, YouTube Live, LinkedIn Live event. You have to think past the event. Then what? Like, if somebody comes to your event, if somebody reads your blog, if somebody reads your Twitter feed, if somebody watches your TikTok, then what? What is the process by which you share your product, service, or knowledge, information, tidbits around the things that you want to share? Then what? What do you want them to do next? Now, before you ask people to do something like give you their email, oh, I want your email. Before you ask them to, sign up for this free event or this paid event, You have to give them value, right? Give them value. Give them something tangible, and don't be afraid to give. When I wrote my book, Inner Size, all of my books, everything that I write in my books is the stuff in my head that I'm working with clients who pay me $5,000 an hour. They just want to go deeper on the work for me to help them implement it. But I want to give value. And then I can say, hey, if you want to go deeper, get my books. You want to go deeper, get my programs. You want to go deeper, get into my coaching program. You want to go deeper, hire me as a consultant. But first, give the knowledge. So here's the question that you want to ask yourself. What problem does your product or service solve? What fear does it eliminate? What pain does it eliminate? What gain do people have because of the product? Whenever I am looking to give people content, I'm always looking at understanding what are the pains, fears, frustrations, irritations, wants, needs, and aspirations. Let me repeat. What are the pains, fears, frustrations, irritations, wants, needs, and aspirations of the person who wants to buy whatever it is, that I have to offer? It doesn't make a difference. Somebody sold all this stuff. By the way, here's my gratitude coin, right? Gratitude. So, whether it's glasses, spray, a pen, a magnifying glass, a gratitude coin, the camera that I'm looking into, the computer, the stand, somebody had to sell that. And every single product or service either eliminates a pain, fear, frustration, irritation, or helps people with a want, need, or aspiration, right? So how do you give somebody content and information and value in advance? And I'll sit on my board or on my keyboard and I will ask, what is it that people want and need that I could help them with? And then I create, whether it's blogs, articles, videos, process maps, and I give them away. Lack of knowledge and skills. So lack of knowledge and skills. So when we don't have, let's say we have a goal, any goal, it doesn't make a difference, whether it's a relationship goal, money, charity, whatever it is, whenever we lack the knowledge or the skills, there's a part of us that has self-doubt. Self-doubt is what triggers fear.
Because we're worried we don't know enough.
Right. So if we don't know enough, if we don't have the knowledge or the skill, or we think we have to have this certain knowledge or skill that we don't have, or that we think we need, it's going to trigger self-doubt. Self-doubt triggers fear. Fear deactivates motivational centers in the brain and deactivates the thinking part of the brain and our imagination. It's circuits. It's all it is circuits turning on or off.
Yes.
And so in the absence of knowledge and skill of what to do about it, we default to not taking action because we're protecting ourselves.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
And so all of these little mechanisms, these four key ones, cause us to trigger the procrastination circuit in the brain, the do not take action circuit in the brain.
Yes.
Right. And, guys or girls, when they're dating, if they feel uncertain, then they just stay there. Well, maybe he'll come and talk to me. Well, maybe she'll come and talk to me. And it just goes round and round and round and round. How do you recognize and overcome fear? Well, you pay attention. You become mindful. You sit and take some deep breaths and ask yourself some really good questions. What fears are holding me back? Like just get real. Get real with yourself. Don't be afraid. Be afraid of the truth. If you understand the truth and then you have some knowledge and skills to work through, you can change that. So the Take 6, Calm the Circuits is the first inner size. And I'm going to give you a slight variation of Take 6, Calm the Circuits as you do the next inner size. And it's called AYA, Awareness, Intention, and Action. So in this particular inner size, you take 6 rhythmic deep breaths to calm the circuits, but here's a slight variation. This is like a little bit more advanced, right? So what you do is as you breathe in, you say in the back of your mind,
I breathe in calmness. I breathe out fear. So it goes like this. So as you are breathing in calmness, feel yourself getting calm from a level 10, fearful, to 8, to 6, to 4, to 2, to just letting go of the fear. And as you breathe in calmness and you breathe out fear, I want you to visualize fear leaving your body. Just release it. Remember, it's a neurochemistry that you're feeling. So what you do is you give your brain the instruction of what you want. So I breathe in calmness, I breathe out fear, or I breathe in calmness, I breathe out stress, or I breathe in calmness, I breathe out anxiety. Just a few seconds of that is the first part of the exercise. But then what you do is then you say, right after you do that, you now become aware and have a piece of paper next to you. And in the awareness state, what you want to do is become awareness of thoughts, feelings, emotions, sensations, and behaviors. Thoughts, feelings, emotions, sensations, and behaviors. So the first part is you become aware. No shame, no blame, no guilt, no judgment, no justification, just pure awareness. Then you ask yourself, in this calm, relaxed state where you're able to respond, you ask yourself, what's my intention right now? Is my intention to be fearful? No. Is my intention to be courageous? Yes. Is my intention to overcome my fear? Yes. Great. So you have the awareness. You set one intention, not 5, one intention. And then the last A is action. What is one action I could take? One action towards achieving whatever goal I have. So maybe one action is I'm going to write one line of my book. One action is I'm going to just make one phone call. One action is I'm going to ask for help. One action to move you away from what you don't want. You have to create marketing, content, and offers, irresistible offers that people want to move towards because it really helps them. It really helps them, okay? And so when you are asking somebody to buy something, first, did you offer value in advance to build trust and rapport? Second, did you create a process for them to be able to easily move through from knowledge and information to making a decision that's good and helpful to them? And then, did you create an offer that is irresistible for them? An offer that's irresistible for them, that of course you make a profit on. You have to make a profit because you're in business to make a profit and to help people. So what I want you to do is when you are thinking about how to structure your business, how to structure your offers, how to structure your marketing so you stand out from the competition, now you have an opportunity to really grow your business so that it actually works for you. Unfortunately, most business owners have a job that they work in their business. They don't have a business. They're entrepreneurs, I get it, but they have a job. Your job is to create really great marketing that gives people a lot of what they need to help them, okay, with their pains, fears, frustrations, irritations, wants, needs, and aspirations. Your job is to give value in advance on the channel that your ideal client is at. And then your job is to create a sales process that makes it easy for them to do business with you instead of somebody else. It's easy, but it's also easy not to do. The golden nugget specifically for entrepreneurs is something that I was taught 37 years ago by my mentor, who was a very successful entrepreneur. And he said,
take 1 hour a day to level up your skills. He says when you do 1 hour a day to level up your skills, whether it's your mental skills, emotional skills, strategic skills, whatever it is, but 1 hour a day after 365 days is 9 40-hour weeks that you will be ahead of anybody who isn't doing that. So 1 year, it's 9 40-hour weeks, 9 of them, that's 2.5 months. Do that for 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, you will become an expert and you will make millions of dollars, you'll be happy, you'll be, not because of the millions of dollars, you'll be able to live the lifestyle of your dreams because of who you've become by upgrading your knowledge and skills and abilities by just 1 hour a day. So, patterns that have been reinforced for 20, 30, 40, 50 years. They're strong patterns. They're really strong patterns.
Yes.
So you don't change a 20 or 30-year-old pattern in 20 days by doing it 20 times or 30 times or 50 times. When the other pattern has been recreated and reinforced thousands and thousands of times. You operate your whole day, your whole week, your whole month, your whole year based on the patterns that have been there, put there and reinforced.
Yes.
So what if I said to you, train your brain for 100 days and replace the old disempowering or negative or destructive patterns with a new pattern, but deliberately.
Yes. Intentionally.
Deliberate. It's called deliberate conscious evolution. I'm deliberately going to choose to change myself. And if you committed to that, think about what would happen if we said, let's say you're out of shape. And we said, you know what? Let's go for a 1 minute walk every day. Not an hour, 1 minute.
Yep.
So the first, week we go, wow, this is easy. 1 minute walk. I can just walk around my house for a minute. Here's what I guarantee will happen. At the end of 1 week, so let's do a minute and a half. And let's do 2 minutes. And then let's do 3 minutes. And then at 100 days, you might be at, let's say you're at an hour 100 days later because you actually enjoy it. What do you think would happen to your beliefs, to your confidence, to your physique, to everything, if you were to exercise gently, lightly for 1 hour a day? Change your life.
Completely transform. Yeah.
So let's start with self-talk. Let's start with eliminating
So
our self-deprecating, discussions with ourselves. And if we want to change our limiting beliefs, why not start with asking what empowering beliefs do I want to have? And then what are ways that I could actually create that pattern in my brain? So reading an affirmation and closing your eyes and actually feeling what that's like if it was true, and how would you behave if that was true, and what kind of comments would you get if that was true, activates not only the left prefrontal cortex of your brain, the occipital lobe part of your brain, the emotional part of your brain, and the motor cortex of your brain, but that is what it requires to rewire the brain with a new, more empowering pattern. Because I felt dumb, I read thousands of books and did hundreds of courses. And because I didn't feel like I was smart enough, I took the thing that could have, made my life a mess and turned it into my fuel for success. And because I lived with parents that didn't have a great marriage, I ended up divorcing twice. But because of all of those things, I studied and researched and dove deep into who do I need to be to have a great relationship? What communication skills must I have? Who can I model that had a great relationship? And I'm afraid not to do it now. So people ask me, when do you stop? Never. When they bury me is when I'll stop. I have such a habit of working on me, learning more, becoming more loving, more caring, more kind, more generous, more giving, more. Where do you stop? And it's not a matter of acquiring more. I'm not going to eat any differently for the rest of my life than I eat now. I'm not going to eat bigger, meals. I'm not going to do things too much differently than I am now. So now it's a matter of expression and expanding more to do more good in the world. So in order for me to do more good in the world, I have to expand even my own mindset. I've got to get away from the fears that I have of maybe not being good enough or not being smart enough. I still get those feelings. But because of my daily rituals and my daily practices, I get back to my spiritual center, my spiritual core, and a little bit more confident and a little bit more certain every day towards the goals that I want to achieve. And I bridge that gap. And then when I reach those goals, keep doing it again. The more you can create success rituals, processes, and systems, daily success rituals to activate your motivational centers, your emotional centers, and behaviors, the more you can create daily rituals of how you start a day, how you deal with stress during the day, how you plan your day, how you evaluate your day, how you follow through to the end of the day in a process that puts you in a cycle of success, the easier it becomes to achieve success and to make that the default mode of the brain. Once you understand that the power center is right within you and you learn how to just use the tools a little bit better. We've got the most powerful 3-pound tool in the world with no user's manual. Right. And so no user's manual. And so we teach people, here's the latest research. Here's how you can apply it to your life to be healthier, happier, make more money, get a better job, get a raise, start your business and do better by retraining your brain to be totally aligned with your goals and dreams, and learning how do I stay focused, how do I stay motivated, how do I stay on track, how do I develop the habits that will empower me, and how do I do the things that inspire me instead of the things that expire me.
You all know that you have a conscious part of your brain that's responsible for certain things, okay? But then you also have a subconscious part of the brain, subconscious. And so what is this 800-pound gorilla that prevents you from achieving your goals? Like, what is it? Like, what do you think it is about the subconscious that prevents you from achieving your goals when consciously you want to achieve your goals, right? Consciously you want to achieve your goals. And Kamyar, yeah, we have, right hemisphere and left hemisphere of the brain. And in between, okay, we have something called the corpus callosum that connects both hemispheres. And contrary to popular belief, we're not, left brain dominant or right brain dominant. We use all of our brain every 24 hours. So you don't use only 5 or 10% of your brain. The possibilities are endless, all right? But when you're talking about the gorilla, the subconscious is the, what I talk about in the book, right, is I named it the gorilla. So conscious and subconscious, yes. And so tell me what you know about the subconscious mind. Like, if it is the 800-pound gorilla, what do we know, right? The gorilla gets what the gorilla wants. And so if you ask yourself a question of, do I really know how to get my subconscious mind aligned with my conscious desires and goals? So answer that question for me. Answer me that riddle. Do you know how to get your subconscious mind? And by the way, the subconscious is not like here and the conscious is here. We know that the left prefrontal cortex, for example, is the seat of awareness, and it's the seat of decision making. It's the seat of choosing what we want. We know that this part of the brain we call the left prefrontal cortex, and it's what I call is the Einstein part of the brain. It can figure things out. You consciously can figure things out. The right prefrontal cortex is the pessimist, or what I refer to as the Frankenstein part of the brain that moves into the memory system and brings forth anything that may get you into trouble, anything that may be painful, anything that might hurt you. And so there's these things going on in the brain. If you think of your brain as an orchestra, and some of your brain is responsible to play certain pieces, and other parts of your brain are there to protect you. When those pieces oppose each other or are not in alignment, then you have chaos.
The fascination that I have is around living in a world right now where we have access to all the how-to. How do I make more money? How do I grow my business? How do I have a great relationship? How do I, find the love of my life? How do I put a rocket ship on Mars? And a lot of people are confusing having information and how-to with actually doing it. And I've been fascinated just in understanding, how do I help people unleash more of their potential that already exists? And a lot of people may have heard, they say that we only use 5 to 10% of our brain. That's not true. We use 100% of our brain's capacity in neural networks every moment of every day. But the potential to use more is there. And so our researchers at NeuroGym really are uncovering how to take the best information from the world of neuropsychology, neuroscience, and give it to everyday people so they can say, okay, how do I overcome my fear of not being good enough, my fear of not being smart enough, my fear of being embarrassed or ridiculed or ashamed, or fear of failure or fear of success. These are all psychological issues that everybody feels, but very few people understand. When I feel that, what do I do about it so that I can unlock more of my potential, so I can actually take more action, first on the things I already know that I could be and should be doing, but I'm not, and next on the behaviors that I could be taking to achieve my success easier and faster. And that's really my passion, is helping people unlock that amazing potential within them. The beautiful thing about the time that we're living in now is we can share knowledge and experiences, and anybody with a phone, an iPad or a smartphone or an Android or a computer, anywhere in the world, in the Kalahari Desert, in Antarctica, can get access and get inspired.
It's the best ideas in the world.
Yeah, to get the best ideas in the world, but to see that we're no different. None of us are different. The illusion is that we're different because we're comparing who we are compared to the person that we're listening to or learning from, and we're seeing the gap. And the gap is what causes us to be uncomfortable. But if we remember, we're all spiritual. We're all made from the exact same thing. If you think about the human body, it's made of hydrogen, oxygen, nitrogen, carbon, helium. There's elements. Well, we came from the furnaces of stars. You can't have carbon, in the human body that didn't come from the inside of a star. Helium and hydrogen is what the Big Bang was initially made up of. And then as all the gases coalesced and created stars and then galaxies, we became, our flesh and blood and everything that we became, the organism, has come from the universal intelligence. That's why we're all connected. And that's why we all have the same abilities, different skills, different knowledge, but the same abilities to become all of the ideas, goals, and dreams that we have. And so we just have to say, that is what I want to trade my life for. And even though I don't know how, even though I may not feel totally comfortable or confident, or I'm lacking certainty, let's get on the path, and then we can change the world together.
If everybody could imagine for a moment you're driving a car and everything's going great, and all of a sudden a light pops up on your dash. Now, the average person won't take a hammer and hit the light to turn it off. An average person will take a look at, what is that light? Am I low on windshield wiper fluid? Am I low on air in my tires? Is my back trunk open? What's going on? So just like the signal in a car is meant to make you aware, fear is a trigger in our subconscious mind that real or imagined danger has percolated in our brain. And so fear, there's nothing wrong with fear. We can actually use fear as fuel. Now, I like to, give people visuals. So imagine if you have, two parts of your brain. There's many more, but imagine these two. We have the Einstein brain and we have the Frankenstein brain. And when fear gets activated, let's assume that that's our Frankenstein brain going, what if? What if you get hurt? What if you lose money? What if you die? What if you get embarrassed, ashamed, ridiculed, or judged? And so why does Frankenstein even get activated? Because we're not born with those fears. And so if we're not born with those fears, that means that something in our brain is triggering this reaction automatically without our thought. And that is what we call as the fear response. And we also know that that fear response causes something called the sympathetic nervous system to activate, which causes us to want to fight, freeze, or run away. That's just the absolute reaction at a biological level of what is happening. Now, when we want to deactivate that sympathetic nervous system, there's several what I call our exercises that we can do that actually gives us more control, more power, and the ability to reactivate the Einstein part of the brain. So exercise number one is really, really simple. It's called Take 6, Calm the Circuits. So as soon as you catch yourself in a state of doubt, fear, worry, anxiety, stress, that means that Frankenstein's activated. If you just took 6 deep breaths in through your nose as slowly as you could, and then you exhaled as if you're exhaling through a straw in your mouth. If you just did that 6 times, that very simple exercise would deactivate the Frankenstein brain and allow you to reactivate your thinking, imagination, Einstein part of your brain. And then you can do the second exercise, which puts you right back in control. And that one I call is AYA, A-I-A, which is now a matter of awareness. Awareness of my thoughts, emotions, feelings, sensations, or the behaviors that I've just taken, or the one I'm afraid to take. And in a pure state of awareness without judgment, blame, shame, guilt, or justification. Let me repeat, without any judgment, blame, shame, guilt, or justification of the feeling or the thought or the behavior, now I'm empowered again because now I can observe. And now in this observational mode, I could say, okay, what's my intention, let's say for the next 10 minutes? Well, my intention is to be happy. Great. My intention is to be productive. Great. My intention is to, take action on this one thing that's going to help me towards my goal and dream. So in the awareness and in the intention, then if I say, what's one small action step I could take towards what I want instead of what I don't want? So all of a sudden, I've interrupted a fear pattern. I've created this state of awareness. I've set an intention, and now I'm taking action towards what I want versus being paralyzed by what I don't want and a fear that may or may not be real. So awareness is what actually gives us choice, and choice is what actually gives us freedom if we make the right choices. We all have these patterns that are subconscious, that are driving our behaviors more than our conscious efforts. And so when we're dealing with the gorilla in the brain, and again, it's a metaphorical way to look at it, you have to understand that the gorilla is going to get whatever the gorilla is wired to get. The gorilla does not care about what you consciously want. The gorilla really focuses on the patterns that are going to keep it safe. And here's what safe means. Safe just means comfort zone. Let's say you're miserable. Let's say you're broke. Let's say you're overweight. Let's say you're in a relationship that you don't like. Let's say you're a job you don't love. That is safe to the gorilla. Why? Because it knows the pain it's already dealing with. It knows the discomfort. It knows the price it's paying already versus getting out of that comfort zone, leaving the job that you're not happy with, leaving a relationship that you're not in love with, trying to earn more income, getting out of debt. You could be in debt and comfortable. You could be in a relationship you hate and comfortable. You could be in a job that you don't love and comfortable. And the gorilla is going to keep you in your comfort zone.
When I was 19 years old, okay, when I had a mentor, a man who was in his 50s, very, very successful, he agreed to mentor me and to teach me what he knew. And so he sent me home with some paper. And on the paper it said, what do you want to achieve in your health? What do you want to achieve in your relationships? What do you want to achieve financially? What do you want to achieve charity? What do you want to achieve as far as experiences? When do you want to retire by? How much money do you want to make?
Wow.
He asked me about 10 pages of questions. And at 19, I had no idea. Like, how much do I want to make? I want to make enough to pay my bills. I want to make enough to, just eat well and then have some fun. I want to go drinking with my friends. I want to go party and travel a little bit and pay for my apartment and a nice car and things like that. But he had me think, 1 year, 5 years, 25 years.
Wow.
And I was 19, and he made me write down the answers to these questions, even though I had no idea how to achieve them. He made me write it down. It took me a whole weekend. And then I went back and he looked at my papers. And so he looked at health and wealth and relationships and career and business. And he goes, good, way to do the exercise. I'm very proud of you. He says, now I want you to increase that amount. And so I said that, by the time I was 45, I was 19. I said, by the time I was 45, I was going to be a millionaire. Nobody in my family was a millionaire. Not my aunts, not my uncles, not my cousins, nobody in the area that we lived in. And I wrote that down. And he says, no, that's not enough. He says, you could do better than that. And I'm like, I'm swallowing, I'm scared, I'm afraid. How am I going to become more than that? How can I have all of this? He says, don't worry about the how right now. You worry only, and not even worry, but you write down what you want. And so I went back home and started to write again.
Again.
And took another, half a day to redo my goals. And he said to me, great, now in order for you to achieve those goals, what do you have to believe?
Wow.
I said, well, I have to believe that I can. I have to believe that I deserve it. And even though I didn't believe that I deserved it, he said, what would you think you had to believe? I have to believe that it could be done. I have to believe that I could learn the skills. I would have to believe. So he made me write out what I would have to believe.
Good question.
And then he said, great, what do you think you would have to do every day?
Wow.
I go,
Amazing question.
Well, I guess I would have to come to work every day, and I'd have to really get good at what I'm doing, and I'd have to learn more than I'm learning right now because I hated to learn back then, and I'd have to, gain more skills, which I didn't have any. The only thing I was good at was I had an easy time talking to people like I am with you now. And he said, great, well, let's make a list of all of these things, and let's come up with a plan to do this. He said, so every day, let's look at some beliefs. And so every day he would have me look at my goals. And I would sit in my chair and I'd have my goals, that he had me write. And I would take my fingers, which he told me to touch my goals, so that I would send a message to my brain as I was reading it and seeing it to reinforce the goals that I wrote. Then I would read the beliefs that I needed to have. I have all the intelligence I need to achieve these goals. I can now acquire all the skills to achieve these goals. And I read about 20 or 30 different beliefs every day. And for the first month or 2 months, while I was reading all of this, in my head, this one word kept coming up. You know what the word was? Because as I would read it, my brain would say, that's not true. And he told me that my brain would try to talk to me and tell me it's not true. And he said, if you keep doing it over and over and over again, your brain's going to get tired of telling you it's not true. And especially if after you do this, you take some actions to upgrade your knowledge, upgrade your skills, you'll develop more confidence and more certainty. So he taught me how to use the telephone to make telephone calls to people to see if they were interested in buying a real estate property or selling their home. I was in real estate at 19. And you know, for the first month it was hard, second month it was hard, the third month it was hard, but as I got better and more comfortable at being on the telephone, talking to people that I didn't know, that I thought didn't want to hear from me or talk to me, I found one person, then two people, then three people, then five people who said yes. Because as I became more comfortable, as I became more skilled, as I gained more knowledge, people received me differently. And in my first year, I made $30,000. I was 19, which was $5,000 more than my father made as a taxi driver.
Wow.
Then he started to upgrade my skills a little bit more. And he started to teach me some very specific things to do in real estate. And in my second year at 20, I made $151,000.
Wow.
5 times more income, because every day for 1 hour a day, I practiced my beliefs. I practiced seeing my vision. I rehearsed it. I got on the phone. I upgraded my knowledge. I upgraded my skills.
I love your story.
Thank you. And so he kept directing me a little bit at a time to become more tomorrow than I am today. And he said to me something that changed my life. He says, if you invest 1 hour a day on your personal growth and changing who you believe you are, that is the equivalent of 9 40-hour weeks of effort. 1 hour a day for a year is 9 40-hour weeks. If you and I said today, we're going to learn breakdancing, or we're going to learn knitting, and we're going to spend 9 weeks, 40 hours a week, we would get good at painting, we would get good at knitting, we would get good at darts, we would get good at playing a musical instrument if we were committed to 1 hour a day. So I've practiced 1 hour a day for 32 years.
Wow.
And that 1 hour a day has changed my life. So vision board for seeing what you want, the accomplish board for reminding yourself that you've got a lot to that you've accomplished, so you feel good, and the crap.
Do you
board,
actually put up images of things you've accomplished?
Yeah, I have them in my closet in my home, encased on the floor.
Like on the floor, so that you don't look at them. So
I look at them just because I sit down to put on my shoes. I want to look at them every day.
Interesting.
Yeah. On my I have this ritual as well. I do something called brush and prime. So on my bathroom mirror, I have my goals that are on my mirror, so that as I'm brushing my teeth, I'm priming my brain to see my goals in front of me every morning and every night.
I love that.
Right, so that's priming your brain, which is a whole other topic we can have. And then the accomplishment boards reminds me, whenever I look at the stuff that I've accomplished, I go, that wasn't easy. I mean, there are a lot of ups, downs, highs, lows, failures, times I thought I'd quit and I didn't. So it's to remind me to go through the times that I don't think I'm going to be able to achieve those things. And then the crap board stands for conflict, resistance, accomplishments, and procrastination. So what conflicts are happening right now that I need to resolve? What resistance is in my way? What am I resistance? What in front of me is resisting right now? And then accomplishment as well is to remind you that you can get through stuff. And then procrastination is what's causing me to procrastinate. So if you create a crap board as well, you have that in front of you, and then you can create a game plan for what am I going to do about it? What am I going to do about the conflicts? If you think about what makes up who we are, So obviously there's genetics. There's our genetic makeup, so our predisposition, our propensities. And that makes up a percentage of how we see the world and how we show up. But then the rest of it, we're trained on. So we're trained to see the world a certain way. So there are certain people that have something called a negativity bias. And a negativity bias is nothing more than they see the negative first. It's not that they don't see the positive, but they see the negative first. There's other people who see positive first. They have a positivity bias and they see that first. And the truth is, in almost every situation, in every circumstance, there's both. You can train somebody to recognize that there's always both, just like every inside has an outside, every one side of a coin has another side of a coin, every up has a down. That's called the law of polarity. And in the universe that we live in, there is that law of polarity. And so you can teach somebody, say, okay, if your propensity, if the way you naturally are is negativity biased first, great, be aware of that. Then flip over. We call it flip the switch. So if one side of your brain is going negativity first, great. Learn to flip the switch. Go, great. What's the positive side of that? That's a skill you can learn no differently than playing tennis or chess or music.
When you sit down to meditate, do you come with an intention then each time?
No, once I sit down, then I ask my intuition, hey, what is it that you want to be doing today? What is it that you need today? So we all have this intuition, which is different than our instinct. But this intuition, right, it's what we know before we think. And so when I sit down, I say, okay, hey, what's the intention for today? And sometimes the intention is to just let go and see what happens. Sometimes the intention is I'm searching for an answer. Sometimes the intention is, well, today focus, today let go, today just breathe. So I just listen. It's the art and the subtle science of paying attention. Back in 1987, when I bought the franchising rights for Remax of Indiana, I had no idea how to build a company. I was, 26 years old. And but I had another mentor who I invested $75,000 to become his partner, to have the opportunity to learn from this man who at the time was worth probably $100 million. And so I was very, very keen on learning, and I didn't know how to build a business. I didn't know anything other than how to sell real estate. And I set a goal to generate $1 billion a year in sales. And I set the goal for 5 years in the future, not knowing $1 billion goal is like mind-boggling big for me. And there was an interview the second week I was in Indianapolis. I moved from Toronto to Indianapolis for this opportunity. And I was interviewed by the Indianapolis Business Journal. And I said in the interview that I had a goal for $1 billion. And the reporter said, are you aware that there's two companies that have been in the state of Indiana for 80 years, one, 100 years, the other one, and they haven't hit $1 billion in real estate sales in all of these years? And I said, yeah, I know. It's Graves and Tucker. And you can let them know that I'll be the first. Right? And as I said that, I almost felt like I put my foot right in my mouth because I didn't know how I was going to do it.
Right.
Long story short, 5 years later, we sold enough franchise, recruited enough agents. We did $1.2 billion, and we were stuck, which is a great place to be stuck. And I was asking myself, how is it possible that I'm training these agents with strategies, with tactics, with selling skills, marketing skills? We were like the gurus of here's the books, here's the cassettes, here's the trainers, here's like out of the deep end. And the agents who, for example, would make $30,000 a year kept making $30,000 a year. The agents who made 50 kept making 50. The agents who made 100 kept making 100. And so I realized that they weren't missing the skills or the knowledge. There was something else at play. And what helped me from the age of 19 to 27, 28, 30 was every single day, and I still do it today, and I'll share this with you in just a little bit. Every single day, I was priming my brain with the beliefs and the self-image required to achieve the goals that I wanted.
When we talk about reprogramming, I think the important thing to understand is 99.9% of what we think, what we feel, and what we do although most people think I'm in control, I'm the one doing it, it's really non-conscious patterns that are repeating themselves over and over again. So let me explain. When you and I were born, the only neural networks that we had were for survival, right? We didn't have any beliefs of, are we good enough? Are we smart enough? Are we worthy? We didn't have any experiences to show us that that's a scary situation, that one's not. Snakes are safe, or snakes are dangerous, or spiders, or heights, or whatever the case is. So over the course of the first 7 to 10 years of our life, our brain's plasticity switch, our brain's switch that connects all of these neurons and creates the neural map in our brain is being created in the form of millions of connections per second. By the time we're 10 or 12 years old, that switch basically goes off, and now there's more selective creation of neural patterns based on what we like, what we dislike, what we experience, what our parents tell us, what our teachers tell us. Up until that time, we're just an empty, open nest where everything's being formulated. And so what happens is after 10, 12 years old, we're pretty much running on autopilot, and we become conditioned or trained to see the world a certain way, to feel certain things, to behave in certain ways. And so most of our life we're working on autopilot because the non-conscious processing parts of our brain is working at 400 billion bits of information per second and trillions of electrical and chemical reactions per second happening without our thinking about it. And so for adults, 25, 35, 45, 50, we have these patterns that we have to revamp, almost like a remodeling of our own brains. If you think about, when you're driving in a town that you know, whether you're at home or in a city that you know, and all of a sudden you see a detour. If you take a detour and then you start driving down that new detour for a day, 7 days, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, that detour becomes the new easy road to take, even though you're used to going a certain way. The brain works the exact same way. So if you've got these patterns that are easy for you, your brain wants to take those patterns that are easy for you. Easy thinking patterns, easy emotional patterns, easy behavioral patterns. Why? Number one, because it's less energy that the brain needs to use. So law of best use of energy in the brain is where it goes first. So the way you retrain your brain using, for example, the 4R process is you recognize my patterns of thought, my patterns of emotion, my patterns of behaviors. And you ask yourself, are these going to help me achieve the goal that I want to achieve? Whatever the goal is. It's just yes or no. If they are, great. If they're not, then what you want to be doing is saying, okay, how do I change that path? How do I change my thinking? I'm learning that I could be still. I'm learning that I could be aware of my thoughts, but then let them go, and I come back to focus on a sound wave in this particular meditation. And then what happens is, over a period of practice, you realize that your body disappears. You're no longer in this physical thing. You're no longer having these waves of thought after thought after thought after thought after thought after idea, positive, negative, and everything in between. And in that space of recognizing that I'm not my physical body, I have a physical body. I'm not my thoughts, I have thoughts. I'm not my emotions, I have them. When you start to train yourself to use your brain better, more efficiently, more productively, you realize that I am one with this, incredible universe. So what's the big deal about that? Well, the big deal is that if I am one with this universe, with this energy, with everyone and everything, and that's where everything percolates from, is it possible that all my answers are right here, right now anyway? And the answer is yeah. And so meditation is about practicing, and we know that we have different brain waves. So right now, as people are watching or listening, they're in this beta brainwave frequency where their brain is oscillating at a certain frequency, and there's 50 different brain waves going on at any given time. But what happens is when I move from beta to alpha to theta, delta, or gamma, I'm actually accessing and activating different parts of my brain, which now gives me this deeper, greater sense of awareness, of much bigger,
onion that I'm used to seeing. So I'm living on a layer of an onion. And what if I could see like 10 layers up and 10 layers down? So all of a sudden it's like, wow, look at who I am, what I am, who you are, what you are. And in that realization, in that awareness, I can now start to have different choices made. And so meditation is a practice of awareness. It's a practice of going internal instead of external, which is where most people live their lives every day. So the key is to really understand, first and foremost, that you have a brain. You're not your brain. The whole idea with Innercise, right, is to create a pathway for you to be able to say, okay, here's how my brain works, simply as I've put it today, and here's what I could do about it to move out of a state of chaos and dissonance and into a state of coherence and alignment. So when you were you born with any beliefs?
No.
Were you born with any habits?
No.
Were you born with any fears?
No.
No. So from a neuroscience and neuropsychology perspective, a belief is nothing more than this. Imagine that you're born and your brain's made up of 100 billion marbles. And every time you have an experience or somebody says something to you, or you read something or you watch something, these marbles make these connections. And the connections that are reinforced go from conscious connections to subconscious connections. And once these subconscious connections are made and reinforced, they run the show 98% of the time. So a belief is nothing more than a reinforced pattern in the brain. And our conscious brain can choose what we want when we're in that part of our brain, but our subconscious mind can't choose. It's programmed from the age of 0 to 3 in the imprinting years, 3 to about 7 or 8 the modeling years, and then 8 on, it's the experiential years. And so if you have these powerful beliefs that you're good enough, you're smart enough, you're worthy to achieve the goals that you have. If you have these powerful beliefs, you are able to achieve any amount of income you choose, no matter what the amount is, you just need to learn how. So if you have these empowering beliefs, you have brain coherence between conscious and subconscious.
We're in a society that just goes. Texts, emails, phone calls, Facebook, Twitter, Vine. All these things are keeping us on this perpetual hamster wheel of do, that very few people stop and say, what am I doing? What am I not doing? What am I thinking? What am I feeling? So the first part is stop. Second part is to reframe. It's called the 4R process. Recognize is first. Reframe is the way I'm looking at something. And because we are monofocused, the brain cannot focus consciously on more than one thing at a time. All right? It can get distracted to that thing, then this thing, then that thing, then this thing. The art of multitasking is actually one of the worst things that you can do from a neurological perspective. Highly successful people are able to monofocus on the right things. So when you learn to reframe your brain's ability to look at this, then look at this, then look at this, but stay focused on what it is that you're looking at, you see different perspectives of it. The next part is to release the emotional stress that most people's brains are under. How do we get into this emotional stress? Well, when we have fears, there's 50 different types of fears. Fear of success, fear of failure, fear of disappointment, fear of being embarrassed, fear of being ashamed, fear of being ridiculed, fear of fill in the blank. When our brain goes on these automatic fear circuit drives, then we're in a state of fight or flight. In a state of fight or flight, over a course of a day, a week, a month, our ability to actually use our thinking center, the left prefrontal cortex of our brain, actually diminishes. Our brain gets hijacked into this fight or flight response system over and over and over and over and over again. And that response system is actually pretty healthy initially to get you going and out of the gate. But if you are always in this fight or flight response mechanism, you're on this hamster wheel, you actually start to get burnt out. and you can't think. You can't use the genius part of your brain. You can't really activate the part of you that connects to the entire universe of intelligence within you and outside of you. And so you learn to release that tension to be able to put the foot back on the gas, change the gear. If you think about what happens when you're driving a stick shift car, you put your foot on the gas in first gear and the car just goes. But if you keep your foot on the gas in first gear, you're going to burn out the engine. So what happens in the release part of using your brain is you go from first gear, pause, second gear, pause, third gear, pause. You're able to use the engine more efficiently to go faster. Exact same thing with our brains. If we learn how to release the tension and switch gears, release the tension, switch gears, that's the art of release and go. And that causes the fourth R, and that's we retrain our brain to operate at higher levels of our intelligence, genius, and abilities.
What happens if at the subconscious level, okay, so you have conscious goal, conscious vision, conscious reasons why I want to achieve it. What happens if at the subconscious level, let's say for weight, you've tried to lose weight before, and maybe you have, but then you've gained it back. What if you've done that 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 times? Is that pattern, okay, the memory, the pattern, locked in the subconscious mind of all those experiences? Is it there? Here's how the brain works. You set a goal using the left prefrontal cortex of your brain, your imagination, and then right after you set the goal and you're excited because you're making some progress, your brain says, hey, last time you did this, you gained all the weight back. Why even try? Last time you did this, and your friends saw that you did this, and then you gained all the weight back. Next time you saw them, you were embarrassed. You were a little ashamed of yourself. Last time you did this, or the 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 times before that, you gained all the weight back, and you disappointed yourself and your significant other because, you know, they said you looked really great, and then you gained all the weight back. So you disappointed them and yourself, and you were embarrassed or ashamed. And so that pattern is there, right? Do you all agree with me so far? The pattern is there. And so if you have, and think about your imagination and your choice to set a goal is one pattern that you formulate. But if underneath there's a subconscious pattern of embarrassment, shame, failure, guilt, disappointment, etc. If that pattern is also there, then you have 2 opposing patterns. You have one pattern that says, let's go and do this, but you have another pattern that says, but last time you did this, you failed, or you've seen your sister or brother or mother or father or friend do this, and guess what? They gained all the weight back anyway, so why even try? I'm going to keep you safe in your comfort zone. I'm going to conserve energy. And that way I'm going to save you some time and money and energy. Does that make sense to you? That is called cognitive dissonance. That is another way of saying that's called chaos in the brain. And a brain in chaos will do what? It'll just stick around doing the things that it's comfortable doing where it's known.
Something that I learned that I think people will benefit from is an anxiety attack, stress, panic, ulcerative colitis. All of these things are effects, right? So they're effects. So the question is, what's the cause?
Yes.
Right? So most people are focusing on either, suppressing the effects, depressing the effects, masking the effects. They're doing everything but going, what's causing this?
Yep.
And if we look at the world of cause, whether it's in our physical body, whether it's our relationship, whether it's our bank account, whether it's our business, whatever the result is, every result in the physical world is an effect. So the question is, what causes the results? And one of the greatest laws in the universe is the law of cause and effect. And it states that for every effect, there's a cause. And for every cause, there's an effect. And so I got really inquisitive and curious early on with, can I control more of the cause of my results? And that required responsibility. And when I was younger, it was like I was more into the blame game. It's because of him, because of her, because of it, because of the market, because of where I live, because of my mother, my father, how old I am or how young I am, how Asian or Caucasian I am. It doesn't make a difference.
Yep.
So a lot of my upbringing caused me to look outside of myself. And when I looked inside myself and took the prerequisite of responsibility, I own it.
Yes.
And I can change it.
So important.
That transformed my life. That really started to put things into perspective.
If you think about visualization is simulation. Now, here is the difference.
Whoa, that's good. Okay, go ahead.
So visualization is simulation. So when we close our eyes, or even if our eyes are open and we start to use our Einstein brain, the imagination, we now have just activated one of the biggest centers of our brain, the occipital lobe, that's connected to the motor cortex. It's connected to the motivational circuit, the nucleus accumbens, that releases that dopamine that makes you feel good, that makes you want to take action. So if you visualize yourself achieving the goal, if you visualize yourself behaving in ways that match the new belief, if you even visualize the words, or you take the words on a sheet of paper and you read them, run your right finger across it, run your left finger across it, close your eyes, see it and feel it, your brain is creating a mental movie with the words. And as it creates a mental movie with the words, that's happening in your subconscious mind. And when you give the subconscious these instructions, a couple things happen because of the way the brain hierarchy works. Number one is survival, but then number two is safety, and then number three is energy conservation. Now, when you do something 20, 30, 40, 50 times, it takes about 66 days to 365 days of repetition to override an old habitual circuit. Not 10 days, not 21 days, 66 to 365. So if you visualize yourself achieving the goal, feeling the success that you want to feel, seeing the belief on the screen of your mind, you are actually creating a neural network through the science of neuroplasticity, and the networks that you reinforce become the most dominant networks. And since your brain wants to conserve energy, if you do this on a consistent basis, your brain says, okay, you're doing this so often, let me just make this automatic. Let me set aside the old beliefs. Let me replace it with the new beliefs. And now you've deliberately and consciously evolved yourself.
One of the things that is really interesting, I mean, just based on what you said, there is something in business, whether it's for salespeople on the phones or salespeople in person. On the phone, it's called call reluctance, and in person, it's called contact reluctance. And so if you think about what does that mean? So I have a call reluctance. I have a reluctance to call somebody that I don't know. And so when some people think about calling somebody they don't know, when they're prospecting or meeting somebody they don't know, if you think about what is it that is actually happening that causes them to feel that. So as soon as they have the thought, their neurochemistry kicks in, because the meaning that they have is, if I call somebody that I don't know and they hang up on me, they yell at me, they say something nasty to me, then they are attacking my identity. And in most cases, they have associated the attack on their identity in a negative way, such as, well, maybe it's true that I'm not good enough. Maybe it's true that I'm not smart enough. Maybe it's true that I'm not worthy. So they have a negative association with somebody's response that they don't even know about who they are. So the first thing we work on is, let's focus on your self-esteem. Because it's the self-esteem that's being attacked. My self-esteem and self-worth is being attacked. So when my self-esteem and self-worth is being attacked in a negative way or unpleasant way, I'm going to process that as danger in my brain. Now, when you understand the brain's number one responsibility is to move you away from danger or pain, that's number one on its hierarchy of how it behaves. So if there is real or imagined pain or discomfort, your brain says, stop, put the brakes on, go the other way. That's what's happening. So the first thing we do is we teach people, number one, let's change the meaning that you have around what somebody else's response is around who you are or what you're doing or what you're offering them. So the first thing we work on is change the meaning, you change the feeling.
For the people who think that the law of attraction is, think, believe, and you'll achieve, first I'm going to tell you that's. So let's call this.
I love this man. I love him.
But I want you to think of your brain just a little bit differently and think of it this way. Let's say you love rock and roll. And let's say rock and roll's on station 95.5. If you're on station 92.1, that might be classical. If you're on station 98.7, that might be punk rock. But at 92.5, that's rock and roll. So imagine coherence just means locking your electromagnetic spectrum of your brain. Lock it and load it on exactly what you want. So what's the vision? What's the goal? What are the beliefs? What are the emotions that create coherence so you're locked and loaded to the frequency of the universe that is matching that goal? Part one. Part two is when you get locked and loaded, you've actually activated the Einstein brain, connected to the motor cortex, connected to the dopamine release in your body. And when that happens, okay, now you're in coherence, but there's another part that happens in this Einstein part of the brain. That's actually what the latest neuroscientists and psychologists are thinking is connected to this GPS part of our brain, to the frequency of where all of the tools, resources, people are that resonate with that frequency. So we've been evolving for 2.5 million years, since Homo erectus to now 108 billion humans on Earth, with a brain that's been changing and growing. And my belief is we're just scratching the proverbial surface. When we talk about, little quantum mechanics or quantum physics with entanglement, how we're all connected, we're all tuning into the frequencies that are us and within us and all around us. Now, when we learn to use our brain better, it's just mind-boggling how we can achieve goals and dreams that we thought were impossible to achieve before. This is the fun part now.
A lot of people ask me about money all the time. It's one of the things we teach people how to do is grow their businesses and how to make more money. And they say, well, I want to make more money. I said, well, in order to make more money, first you have to believe that you can, right? Then you have to believe you deserve it. Then you have to make sure that you have something that you can earn money with. So it's either going to be your ideas. You can sell your ideas.
Like a trainer.
Like a trainer. You can sell your time. You can sell your products. You can sell your services, which means that you have to have some skill. Or you have to have somebody else who could do it for you.
You have to see your skill, right?
Well, you have to either see your skill or determine what skills are needed.
Okay.
And if you don't have it, get somebody else who has it to help you. And so when somebody tells me I want to make more money, I say to them, let's say we have a pen. I don't have a pen here, but if we had a pen,
yes,
and we wanted to make money, we could go and find somebody who wants to buy this pen right now. And how much is somebody willing to pay for the pen? Well, if the pen is worth $1, maybe you can get $1 for it. But what about finding somebody who needs it because they have to sign a contract that's due in 10 minutes? That person might pay $100 for that pen.
Yeah.
So our job is to take, our skills, our knowledge, our products, our services, our abilities, and to be able to present it to people who need it and want it in exchange for money. I think feeling and knowing that you've used your life in a way that makes yourself proud, that you're proud of. You felt like, what a journey, and I left it all out on the field. I just left it all in the field. That's my own greatness, is knowing that I used my life in a way that I left it all out on the field, that the bruises, the bangs, the trials, the tribulations, the highs, the lows, that you used it. As soon as you blame, shame, or justify, You are disempowering yourself instead of being responsible for your emotions, your feelings, your attitude, and your actions. When you take responsibility, then you are not at the mercy of the outside world and what happens in the outside world. You learn how to upgrade your emotional ability. So whether you're happy or sad or disgusted or frustrated or angry or fearful, you know how to navigate the emotions that causes either the motivational center in your brain to light up or the fear center in your brain to light up, thereby causing you to stop and procrastinate and not take action. Everybody can be an entrepreneur, but I don't want anybody to go and be an entrepreneur who's got a lot of passion, for a product or a service or something that they love, without realizing that there are many hats that you have to wear. Right? There's the person who has to know all the little details. There's the person who has to have the vision. There's the person who has to manage. There's the person who has to create the strategies and the tactics of what to do. Then there's the person who has to drive those forward. Those are 6 different things that have to be done, just different hats in a business that most entrepreneurs aren't aware of.
Yeah.
And so they start and they're busy and they're working really hard and they go, God, this is hard.
Yeah.
And it is hard. And they think that they have to do it all themselves. And that's not the truth.
Yeah, you have to learn to delegate, right?
Yeah. Well, you can delegate, you can partner with people, you can barter with people. There's a variety of different ways to do it. But first you have to know what you don't know.
It's not easy.
Well, it's not easy if you're the one trying to figure it out. But if you talk to somebody or hire somebody who's an expert, they'll tell you in seconds. It's like, when you came over here, and you're setting up all your cameras and your lights and all that stuff, you did that in 15 minutes. If I was to do that, it would take me 15 days. Because you're playing at this.
Yeah.
You've done 150 interviews now, right?
Yes.
And so you already know, you've learned 150 times and the setup and takedown and mistakes and what to do right, what to do wrong, what you need to have backups for, what to do for editing, for lighting, for daytime, for nighttime, for clouds, if the voice works, if the sound. There's hundreds of things you have to learn just for this.
Yeah.
Oh, and you have to be an excellent interviewer too, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so there's so many things that you didn't know when you first started this that now you know. So imagine if I wanted to do what you do, I could say, well, I'm going to do this. I'm going to go and figure out which cameras to buy and which lighting to buy and how many batteries do I need and how many wires do I need and how many plugs do I need for the walls and how many backup systems do I need. I could try to figure all that out. I could say to you, can you do me a favor?
Yeah.
Can you give me a list of what to do, what not to do, what to buy, what not to buy, how much it should be, where I should buy it? You could say, yeah, I could do that in 1 or 2 hours.
Yeah.
I could save months, if not a year of my time
and
emotion,
money. And everything.
Right. And so I much prefer to find the specialized knowledge and pay for that and just apply it. If you don't understand that every brain has an error detection mechanism within it, okay, what is that? Anytime you veer out of your comfort zone, the fat point setting or the financial setting, anytime you veer out of it, the first line of defense is self-talk that's negative. That's the first thing that pops up because your brain is going, that's not true. So it's detecting an error between what you said as an affirmation or even what you just visualized or even what you just did against the predominant neural patterns that exist. So it's an 800-pound gorilla initially fighting the flea, right? Dan Heath's book. And so what we want to do is we want to get the conscious goal, the vision, aligned with a non-conscious pattern. And as soon as you align that, you have neural coherence. And when you have neural coherence, that's like hearing your most favorite band playing your favorite song, and you're just like, oh, that's the best.
Bliss, yeah.
It's just bliss. Yeah. If it's not bliss, you're out of coherence. And so the key, and why we start off early with meditation, is awareness of how do I tune in my vibration? How do I let go of that unempowered self-talk, that sentence, that thought that I had, or that disempowering? It's an unpleasant feeling. Beliefs aren't good or bad. They're only pleasant to unpleasant at varying degrees. When we're out of coherence, it's unpleasant unless our life is on the line and safety is there. For the most part, a fear of failing, where's that coming from? We failed our whole lives successfully.
Yeah, exactly.
But the meaning that we're giving, what people will say, what people will think, how I'll be embarrassed or ashamed, those are all the things that you need to really get in tune with.
Yeah.
I have a philosophy that every moment, every precious nanosecond and moment is perfect. And so when I connect to the perfection of that moment, there's really nothing to do. It's to be aware and to allow, to surrender, but not to give up surrender, but to understand that, as we are talking right now, the oceans don't need any instruction what to do. The planets that are moving in their elliptical orbits around the sun don't need yours or my intervention. The universe, the Milky Way galaxy that's flowing through the universe at 1.5 million miles per hour doesn't need yours and my instruction. So that means that every moment is perfect. So I want to connect to the perfection of every single moment, be aware of that every single moment, and realize that many things are not to my taste, many things I don't understand, but that doesn't mean that the moment isn't perfect. Every human being has a relationship with money, and money is something that envelops people's brains about what they buy, what they don't buy, whether they buy, business class or first class or regular economy seats, whether they're always looking for the cheapest or the most expensive, the nicest or average, how much they will tip, how much they won't. We all have a money story that we've developed mostly from our parents and the people that we live near. And we developed this relationship around money and our beliefs around money. Are we good enough to earn that amount? Are we worthy enough to earn that amount? Is it worth it or not? And so one of the things that Mary Morrissey says that we should do, she says, for 7 days, write down the thoughts you have about money and notice when you're thinking, and notice what you are thinking, and notice that the money story you're telling yourself, is it positive, negative? Is it abundance thinking or limited thinking? Is it scarcity thinking, or is it what? Fill in the blank. And so once you know your money story, and this is also something that one of our psychiatrists who works with us, Dr. David Kruger, says, once you know the story, the money story, that's when you can start to be aware of it and go, wow, where did I get these limiting beliefs about money, about my value? Where did I get these limiting beliefs of what I can afford and what I can't? Where did I get these limiting beliefs around how I behave with money? Let's say you have a car, which I imagine most people who are watching have a car. Imagine you're driving your car and a light comes on the dash. It's like, oh, I wonder what that light is. And you look a little bit closer and it says you're low on oil in the engine. Okay, so you're aware of that and the light stays on. And then 2 seconds later, another light comes on and you go, what's going on? And it says that the rear tire is low on air. You go, God, what the hell is going on? And so you keep driving. You say at the next gas station, I'm going to stop and I'll fill up the air and I'll put some oil in the engine so that I top everything up. Now, why am I using that example? When we have an emotion, all emotions, everybody pay close attention. You have emotions, you are not your emotions. Emotions are different than feelings. Emotions happen as an automatic subconscious trigger when your brain is evaluating something you want to do or something that you are doing against the memory that's in there that's causing this old emotion of how you felt or what you did or what you were thinking or what you were experiencing at the time that the memory was created. So all emotions are processed at the subconscious level, and whatever pattern is associated with that behavior that you're doing right now or the incoming stimuli from the outside world is going to trigger this emotion, which then sends a neurochemical release that you feel as guilt and has the thought patterns of guilt or the emotions of being embarrassed. The feeling is the conscious awareness of the cocktail of neurochemicals that have been released, but the emotion is subconscious. So, is it possible to recalibrate a neurological pattern in the brain? Is it possible? If a pattern is nothing more than neurons that have been coalesced or connected, can you interrupt a pattern from the past? Is it possible to interrupt a pattern from the past? So answer that question. Is it possible to interrupt a pattern from the past? Right? So is it possible? Is it possible? Of course it's possible. Any pattern that exists in the brain is nothing more than a group of neurons, brain cells, that in many cases have 10,000 connections, okay, at the end of each neuron that formulate this connectedness between the neurons. So you can interrupt a pattern, just like you can interrupt and create a new habit. You can interrupt an emotional pattern, a behavioral pattern, a feeling pattern, and you can interrupt it using a variety of methodologies. You can take a pattern and you can visualize it getting smaller. You can accentuate it with colors, with animal images, with visualization, with meditation, with mindfulness, with affirmation, with subliminal programming. You can interrupt patterns, and even more important than that, based on the latest research on neuroplasticity, you can create a new pattern, and that becomes the new default pattern. The parts of the brain that register an experience versus the part of the brain that can imagine an experience are not different. So if I imagine doing a bicep curl in my mind, I see my arm moving and I'm doing a bicep curl in my mind, I'm accessing the occipital lobe part of my brain, it is no different than me going to the gym and doing a bicep curl. So when you do both, you solidify the experience even more. Now, I want to just talk about what you just said about your partner who brings in meditation. When most people are asked to do something that they're fearful of, the sympathetic nervous system in the brain kicks in nanoseconds, not in minutes, in nanoseconds. That's the fight or flight response system in the brain. So they want to run away or they freeze and they can't do anything. But if you take that same experience that you want them to do and you have them do it in their mind first in a calm state. So first, if you have them visualize doing that and they feel nervous, but you just have them do one little thing, 6 breaths. Why 6 breaths? We know from the research now that if you imagine in your mind doing something that you're fearful of and you allow the parasympathetic nervous system to rule, that means that you're going to be shallow breathing, you're going to raise your blood pressure, you're going to activate your sweat glands, and you're going to activate all of the fight or fear response mechanism, the fight or flight response mechanisms. And that is a very tense situation to be in. What if you could take somebody and have them imagine that exact same thing, but before they take the action, they see themselves, they just take 6 deep breaths. 1, see yourself doing it. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. What happens is because you're breathing deeply in and out, your parasympathetic nervous system, okay, kicks in. Why? Because that is the relax response
mechanism in the brain. So if you consciously activate your relaxation response mechanism with something that would normally be stressful for you, you actually deactivate the fear center in the brain, the amygdala. And you actually open up your thinking center of your brain, the genius part of your brain that can actually override the fear center of the brain. It's a small little mechanism that you can just learn how to do. So I say you do both. Not one or. Learn both. Goes back to upgrade your knowledge and skills and saying, why am I afraid? Which system of mine, is operating right now? So think about this. When we walk into a room, we could flip the switch and turn on the light because we want more light. Well, why not flip your own genius switch? Why not flip off the switch of fear and anxiety and stress and flip on the switch of calmness, certainty, and creativity? It's your switch. We just haven't been taught how to turn one switch off and turn one switch on.
What if you said, okay, I want to make, let's just say $100,000 a year or $1 million. It doesn't make a difference. And I asked you, what do you need to believe about yourself to achieve it? So I need to believe I'm smart enough. Good. Write down, I am smart enough. What else do you need to believe? I need to believe that I am worthy. I need to believe that I deserve this. I need to believe that it's possible. I need to believe, you write down 5 or 6 or 7 beliefs that are just words on a sheet of paper. Now let me stop for just a moment. I'm going to tell a story and come back to this. I want you to imagine that somebody tapped you on the shoulder sometime today and say, hey, I work with Steven Spielberg and Tom Hanks in Hollywood, and we have this new script, okay, that if you get really good at this script where you could read it in front of a camera without the script, we'll pay you $10 million. Now, I want you to imagine you've never seen the script, you don't know how to act, but they said to you, we're going to give you an acting coach. We're going to give you everything you need to memorize the script. We're going to give you everything you need to act it perfectly. What would you do to take that script that's on a piece of paper that you've never seen before? What would you do to take that script to make it yours, for you to own it? And the answer is you'd probably read it like what, once? Would you read it maybe 100 times, 200 times, 500 times? You think you might role play with somebody while you're holding the script in your hand? Do you think you might research the role? Do you think you might take a camera and practice it? And do you think that if you practice it 1 time, 50 times, 100 times, 500 times, you can finally put the script down and you can get in front of the camera and go, boom, here is the script? Do you think you could do that? Well, guess what? A script that's on a piece of paper that you don't believe, with practice, you start to believe. So what happens if you take a belief system and you start to imprint it into your subconscious mind, initially through conscious repetition. But there are ways to access the subconscious mind that we know today that are faster and easier than just doing it consciously. And so you take a vision of you achieving your goals and dreams. You take the beliefs you need. You learn how to manage your emotions a little bit better. And then you develop the habits, which again are nothing more than neural patterns in the brain that have been reinforced. And when you learn how to deactivate the destructive ones and activate constructive ones through spaced repetition and reinforcement, now you are resetting your default way of being.
Oh.
So a belief is nothing more than a reinforced pattern that if you learn how to deactivate it and create a new one, it's like a software upgrade for your brain.
All we have, which everybody talks about, is this moment, this precious second right now. So the more I could be here right now, the more I'm living, the life that I want to live. I don't want to be focusing too much about the future, too much about the past. I can use those as something to, hope for in the future, as a guiding post from the past. But right now is the moment that every one of us has.
So if you take any event that's occurred in the past, if you just merely think of that event that's occurred in the past, chances are you're firing off the neural network of that pattern, right? So you can take the idea of eating your favorite dessert. What do you think is happening in your brain when you pretend you're eating that favorite dessert of yours and your mouth starts to water and you start to feel, oh, that's such a great dessert? That's neurons in your brain firing and the neurochemistry that is associated with that memory firing. Now, let's say that you have a disempowering pattern of being embarrassed or ashamed or ridiculed. But instead of just thinking about the pattern and going, oh, I don't like it, as soon as you think about the pattern and it has I'm going to say a disempowering or negative emotion, chances are that means that the stress center in the brain has been activated. That means that your heartbeat's going to go up. That means that your sweat glands are going to be activated. That means you're going to breathe a little bit less deeply. You're going to be more shallowly. And that is the fear or stress response. Now, what if instead of allowing that to continue, you just stopped and you had this intention? I'm going to dissolve the effectiveness or the strength of this pattern. How do you do that? Well, first and foremost, you stop, you sit, and you start with inner size number 1 that I guide you through in the book, all right? And inner size number 1 is called Take 6, Calm the Circuits. So you want to move from your stress and react system to your relax and respond system. You have parasympathetic and sympathetic nervous systems, okay, that are triggered within the body. So what happens when you sit quietly and you take 6 deep breaths in through your nose and out through your mouth like you're blowing out through a straw? When you do it 6 times in 10-second rhythmic breaths, and you focus on the air that you're blowing out through your mouth like you're blowing out through a straw, that simple inner size is inner size number 1, Take 6, Calm the Circuits. It actually deactivates the stress, fear, embarrassment, shame, guilt circuit. And in a quiet, relaxed state, that same memory does not have the same power. But if you don't do it in that state, you do it in a tense, stressful state, you're actually reinforcing that pattern versus thinking about bringing up that old memory and doing this repetitively 10 times, 20 times, 30 times, 40 times until the neurons really don't fire that strength at that strength level.
The stuff that I'm fascinated with is behavior, right? Perception and behavior is how I see myself and how people see themselves and why, and then how they see the world and why. And then we know that action, I mean, you know, in The Secret, you mentioned earlier, I was in The Secret, and the thing I loved about The Secret is it gave people some hope that changing my thinking really can make a difference. But there's also the other part of it. You know, in the law of attraction, there was one thing that was left out, and it was called the law of Goya. And the law of Goya is the G-O-Y-A law. It's the get off your ass law. There's nobody that I know other than trust fund friends, okay, that haven't had to do any work to achieve their success. Nobody that I know, whether it's Tony Hsieh, whether it's you, whether it's me, whether it's Mark Cuban, whether it doesn't, Richard Branson, Oprah Winfrey, doesn't make a difference. They've all had to take actions, but it's not just any action. It's taking the right actions in the right order at the right time consistently. And so I've been fascinated with how do we help people develop the mental, emotional, and behavioral habits that lead to success. Because that's the key. Mindset, skill set, and action set. That's the formula.
Let's say you have a shortage of money right now. Let's say you're not earning as much as you'd like, and there's too much month left at the end of the money. Too much month left at the end of money creates stress. Decisions around money can create stress. What to buy, what not to buy. Is it too expensive? Is it, not expensive enough for my taste? Whatever the stress is. I want you to understand stress a little bit differently from the brain perspective. This is the part of the brain, the brain stem that is attached to the first part of the brain called the reptilian brain, which is connected very, very quickly to the amygdala, the stress response center in the brain. When we have stress in our life, whether it's money stress, emotional stress, relationship stress, business stress, career stress, whatever stress we have, the signal that is sent through the electrical system in the brain and the chemical system in the brain, when stress is activated, there's a part of the brain called the vagus nerve and the sympathetic nervous system, which is part of your autonomic nervous system. But the sympathetic nervous system specifically is the system that activates, the stress response system activates one of four things: fear, okay? And we'll talk about fear in just a moment, but when we're in a state of stress, the fight or flight response kicks in, the sympathetic nervous system. So when we're in a fight mindset, we are using a lot of epinephrine, adrenaline, cortisol, and there's this current of anxiety. Now, that's not that bad if it's a little bit, but when it's too much, it actually deactivates the thinking part of your brain that can actually solve the reason you're stressed. So when we are in this fight or flight, which is runaway modality, or the freeze or faint modality, there are people who freeze when they're under too much stress. There are people who faint under too much stress. There are people who run away, and there's people who just try to fight it. So when we are looking at the brain and we're looking at stress, okay, and this is what Heidi's talking about here. She says stress is our own GPS system saying that something is out of alignment, and the energy movement from the calm and respond part of the brain is gone to the stress and react part of the brain. And so one of the tools to calm the brain down, to go from reactive stress to relax and respond, is Innercise number 1 that we teach, and that you're all going to be able to learn in my new book called Innercise. But Innercise number 1 is called Take 6, Calm the Circuits. So whenever you're feeling stressed, whenever there's a problem, whenever you're feeling overwhelmed, whenever you're feeling confused, whenever you're feeling like it's too much, stop. As opposed to trying to fight your way through it, stop, calm down, close your eyes, take 6 deep breaths like this. In through your nose, gently, in a rhythm of about 6 breaths per minute, every 10 seconds. And when you do a breathing exercise, take 6, calm the circuits, that's Innercise number 1, you actually deactivate the stress response center in the brain and you activate the calm and respond part of the brain.
Highly successful people, whether they're taught it like we teach it, or they just know how to do it automatically, they do it. They feel fear, and then they release that fear and they take action anyway. So they can turn their fear into fuel is one of the things that we teach people how to do. Turn your fear into your fuel. And when you turn your fear into your fuel in a calm, centered way, you now are able to use that neuroelectrical chemical called epinephrine or cortisol, the stress hormones, and use them to fuel your success faster and easier than ever before.
You just reminded me of something that I learned that I think people will benefit from is an anxiety attack, stress, panic, ulcerative colitis. All of these things are effects, right? So they're effects. So the question is, what's the cause?
Yes.
Right, so most people are focusing on either, suppressing the effects, depressing the effects, masking the effects. They're doing everything but going, what's causing this?
Yep.
And if we look at the world of cause, whether it's in our physical body, whether it's our relationship, whether it's our bank account, whether it's our business, whatever the result is, every result in the physical world is an effect. So the question is, what causes the results? And one of the greatest laws in the universe is the law of cause and effect. And it states that for every effect, there's a cause, and for every cause, there's an effect.
I often say that there's only 4 things that are holding you back as a human being. Only 4. There's not 25, there's 4 that are the core. One is if your vision and goal is bigger than your self-image. Okay? So if you don't feel you deserve it, you can have this vision and goal and be excited about it and motivated about it. You will not do what it takes to achieve it. 1. 2, if you have limiting beliefs. If you have a vision and goal, but you have a limiting belief that you're too young, too old, whatever the case is, your limiting beliefs will drive your behavior. 3, fear. Fear of being embarrassed, ashamed, ridiculed, or judged. Fear of failure, fear of disappointment. And we'll talk about disappointment in a moment, or fear of succeeding and failing again. Disappointment. And then the 4th one, by the way, is you're lacking the knowledge and skill required. So that actually sets up a self-doubt trigger, which activates the Frankenstein brain, which causes you to lose motivation. But most people prefer to master disappointment and comfort zones instead of mastering change.
Wow.
So if I master disappointment, I know what I got. I just have to deal with, well, okay, this is what I got. And if I master my comfort zone, then at least this is the devil I know.
Yes.
Versus mastering change, and we know what's going on in our brain. We know what's happening neurologically, biologically, emotionally, physically, and all of that is a skill. It's just a skill. So why not just master change? Why not become an adaptationist right now in the time that you need it the most in the world? Because if you don't, then you're just going to keep repeating the same patterns that are going to get reinforced, and it makes it harder in 3 months, 6 months, and 6 years. So master change now and make that one of your core competencies, and then you master your life.
And so if we think about what is a limiting belief, like from a neuroscience perspective, when a neuroanatomist looks in your brain, right, they can't see, oh, here's the limiting belief pattern between here and here. But we do know that a limiting belief is nothing more than a neural network, a pattern in the brain. The marble's connected, right? And if they've connected and have been reinforced often enough and strongly enough, they become part of something known as the default mode network. We just default to that belief. Why? Because we have enough references to say this is true. This limiting belief that I'm not good enough, I'm not smart enough, I'm too young, I'm too old, I'm too Asian or Caucasian. Somehow we have information and experiences that says this is real. So
we're operating from that automatically.
We're operating from that automatically. But what does that really mean? What it means is not only does it affect what we do or don't do, but it affects the lens by which we're seeing the world. We only see the world through the lens of our empowering beliefs or disempowering beliefs.
Yes.
So imagine if you had a lens, whether it's on your camera or on your glasses, and all of a sudden you put a coating on it to take out all the blue light. You're not going to see the world the same.
Yep.
All the blue light is gone. Well, limiting beliefs or empowering positive beliefs do the exact same thing. If you think about a radio, and a radio is a good example. If you were on 98.5, let's say there's rock and roll on that station. At 98.9, there might be classical music. At 99.1, there might be big band, okay, music. So I do agree that when you get aligned mentally and tune in to what it is that you want, you're in resonance with that energy field. And there's millions of frequencies, okay, all around us. So the first thing is, yes, get totally cleared, get totally on the station of what you want to achieve. That's step one. If you're here and there and here and there, then you're on a variety of different stations. And I totally believe that our brain emits a frequency based on our predominant thoughts and emotions, and it also is in a receptive state when you're practicing certain spiritual practices or you're on that frequency and you're on that channel.
So I do believe in that. That's called being in a resonance. But I do not believe for 1 second that while we're sitting here in this hotel room, okay, at the Encore Hotel, somebody's going to knock on the door and say, John, Nick, you guys just won $1 billion because we are in resonance. No, we have to participate in the process and do something to help create that.
We have 100 trillion cells in our body. I've had neck injuries, shoulder injuries, meniscus injuries. I've had ankle injuries. I've had injuries because I've always been pretty athletic. If you think about what is happening every time I breathe in, I'm breathing in hydrogen, oxygen, nitrogen, carbon, plus a whole bunch of other elements from the air. What do you think your bones and tissues and muscles are made of? I'm eating, let's say I'm eating a protein, whether it's tofu or a piece of chicken, right? I'm eating a protein that is making muscle. I'm eating fat. I'm drinking water. We are made up of hydrogen, oxygen, nitrogen, and carbon mostly. And so every 7 years, we're making a whole new body. Our eyeballs are different. Our skeleton is different. Our brain is not the same cells that were in our brain 7 years ago. Our lungs, liver, heart, tissues, nothing is the same. And so if I am visualizing, if I am meditating, if I am seeing a new healed bone, if I'm seeing a new healed part of my being, is it possible that I can direct some of what's happening in my body? And the answer is, of course I can. There are so many people that have healed, okay, from traumatic brain injuries, from back injuries, from tears and all that stuff. And so I absolutely believe that we can heal. So that is my opinion. And we are just starting to scratch the proverbial surface of what our potential really is, and it starts with our brain.
And so the research that our neuroscientists and neuropsychologists provide us with is what drives behavior? What are emotions? What are feelings? What are the 6 core emotions that are processed at the non-conscious level that give rise to feeling? See, feeling is conscious awareness of what I'm experiencing in my body. The emotion of anger, disgust, shame, happiness, or fear is processed non-consciously. That gives what? An electrical signal that we feel. That's called feelings. And so what we're fascinated with is how are people processing information that gives rise to feelings, which then causes people to take action or not. So that's the kind of stuff I'm fascinated with. And then how can we help somebody shift their perspective? If you change the way you look at something, the feeling changes. So if you change the meaning, you change the way you look at something, the feeling changes. If the feeling changes and we help people put their foot on the gas instead of on the brake, then they're going to take action. And most people, I mean, if everybody's watching right now, they're thinking, why am I not doing, forget about learning anything new. Why am I not doing the things I already know I should be doing? So a salesperson you mentioned earlier, they know they should be prospecting. Why aren't they prospecting more? Like, why not? Well, it's because something in their brain has got the brake on. Why not discover why, get your foot off the brake, take action?
So you may or may not know this story yet, but 10 years ago, I was 238 pounds, 33% body fat, borderline hypertensive, almost full-on diabetes, severe sleep apnea, not in good shape.
No, I did
and
not.
So I said, listen, you've done okay in business. You've done okay with your relationship. You're happily married. Great, this and that. Look at you. You're a physical mess. Yeah. And so words are really, really, really critical because there's something really important listening. And so if you're using words that you're reinforcing, if they're self-deprecating words, you're reinforcing a self-deprecating self-image, which means Frankenstein brain is going to be triggered by those words. So if you think about weight, what is it? Every pound is 3,500 calories of energy. Right? And so when you think about what do you do when you lose something? What have we been taught to do when we lose something? Try and find it.
Go find it. Go get it back.
So if weight is energy, I said to myself, What do I need to do to release this energy back into the universe, back in the form of hydrogen, oxygen, nitrogen, carbon, whatever it is, so that somebody else who needs it right now can use it? It served me long enough. I'm ready to release it and to change, my physique, to change how I feel, to change how I look. And my goal back then for my 50th birthday was to get into the best shape of my adult life for 50, which I did. And then my goal is to have a six-pack at 60, which I'm already there. So I'm actually almost there. But the whole idea was the words that I use, right, are really important because they're the words that I listen to and reinforce.
When we talk about the word fear, right? So let me start off with another little premise here is most people are highly ignorant in understanding what fear is. Now, I want to make sure people heard me correctly. Ignorance doesn't mean you are stupid. Ignorance means you just don't know. We're all ignorant.
We don't know what we don't know.
Well, we don't know what we don't know, and even the things that we do know may not be accurate. So when we talk about fear, there are 50 different types of fear. All fear is processed in the subconscious mind. The automatic neurochemistry that is created as a result of the meaning that we give certain things that cause us to either be in a state of fear or a state of courageousness is all being processed in our subconscious mind. So what causes fear for you doesn't cause fear for me or for somebody else, or may cause fear in other people. So whether we're standing at the top of a building that's 100 stories high, some people look over and don't have fear, and other people do have fear. Whether there's a giant 10-foot boa constrictor in front of you may cause fear in you, that doesn't cause fear in another person. So it's never the thing that is causing the fear. It's the subconscious interpretation that we've been conditioned to believe. The meaning that we learn to give something determines whether the neurochemistry of fear is activated that causes us to feel a certain way. So the feeling, of being scared, the feeling of being uncertain, this feeling of having self-doubt, the feeling of having too much stress in our life, that is an effect, not a cause. So feelings are conscious, our ability to be aware of this stuff that's going on in our body that we either know or don't know how to handle or do anything with. So feeling is conscious. Fear is subconscious. And so if, for example, we have, one of the examples I use is, and you don't have this, obviously, but if I ask 100 people, do you have a fear of public speaking?
I was just going to say that. I was just going to say that.
I'm reading your mind. I'm reading your mind. Well, it's not your fear. And that's what I'm going to say. So the actual fear is of being embarrassed, ashamed, ridiculed, or judged. So if we're afraid of being embarrassed, ashamed, ridiculed, or judged, that has nothing to do with the actual public speaking. It has to do with our self-image and self-esteem and what we think of ourselves and what we believe others will say or think about us, which will affect our own self-image or self-esteem.
Let's say you have something that you want to do, a project you want to finish, a book you want to write, a business you want to start, a girl you want to call or walk across the room, or a guy. You want to achieve a goal, okay? So if you imagine that when you set your goal, you're activating the left prefrontal cortex, which I like to call is the Einstein part of the brain, the part of your brain that can say, what can I imagine? Well, I can imagine myself achieving that goal. I can imagine myself making more money and living the lifestyle of my dreams. I can imagine fill in the blank. So you set the goal. So part one in the brain is setting of the goal, having that vision for what you want.
We know up until about 20 years ago, scientists believed that we were hardwired. So we were born, we had certain genetic propensities. You're like your mother, like your father, like your grandparents, and then you became a little bit like you as a combination of both of those and your experiences. Well, the science was wrong, right? We just have learned a lot more in the last 20 years than we've known in the last 480 since we began science. And so the science of neuroplasticity shows us that we're consistently creating new connections. But to leave it at that is not very useful. So the question is like, so what, right? So what's a new connection? Like, what's the big deal? And think about this. What baby was ever born with any beliefs? None. What baby was born with any habits? None. What baby was born with any prejudices at all, or racist, ideas? None. What baby was born with any perspectives or paradigms or habits? None. And so what happens is a baby is born with about 100 billion cells. So think about 100 billion cells like you would 100 billion marbles. And every
That's
time,
a lot of marbles.
Yeah, so a lot of marbles, right? That's why you lose your marbles. So every time the baby heard something, saw something, felt something, experienced something, these marbles made connections in their brain. And that's called neuroplasticity, the brain's ability to create new connections. And it's doing that every second of every day. And by the time we're, 3-4 years old, we've gotten a lot of these neural connections, these beliefs and habits and perspectives from our caregivers, our parents, our brothers or sisters, how they treat us, how we feel. And so we develop these connections, from 0 to 3, 4, the imprinting years, and then we have the modeling years where we're modeling our parents from, 2.5, 3 to 5, 6, 7, where we're dressing like them and trying to put on their makeup, which I did too. And so we're modeling now, and then we have our experiential years where we gain some of our own experiences, and we are creating these new connections in our brain that become our map of the world. Here's how the world works. White people are this, black people are that. When I put my finger in this socket, it feels really bad, so don't do it more than once. When I eat this, I like it, and when I see this, I laugh, and when I do this, it hurts. And so we develop this model of the world, and we develop our beliefs about money, about relationships, about career, about travel, about food. We develop all of this stuff, by the millions and millions and millions of connections every hour. And then it slows down after we're about 10 or 12 years old. So we have this map, this road map of reality. And based on our parents and caregivers and grandparents and teachers and television and whatever we experienced, some of that map is accurate and some of that map is not. Some of those beliefs are accurate, some of them are not. Some of the habits we developed are constructive and some are destructive.
Yep.
Right? But from a neuroscience perspective, they're nothing more than just connections between one marble or another. Now here's the good news, great news actually. We can deliberately create our own connections now, because we know that this science of neuroplasticity says that if we take, let's say, an affirmation, I'm so happy and grateful that I am more and more confident each and every day. So it may not sound real initially when you say that, but that's because you've said it one time and the connection is weak. But if you said that 100 times or 500 times or 1,000 times, and then you felt it, and then you went out and did a couple little things to give you some confidence. Let's say you're shy, and you just went to, a coffee shop, and you just smiled at somebody and nodded to them. Didn't have to say a word, just smiled and nodded, and they smiled and nodded back, and you go, oh, wow. That didn't hurt. They didn't hurt me. They didn't say anything bad about me. They didn't embarrass me. They didn't try to shame me. They didn't try to make me feel guilty. And if you did that enough for a day, a week, a month, 3 months, all of a sudden you'd be inner-sizing your self-confidence muscle. And the shyness starts to go away a little bit at first. And then it's like, wow, this isn't a dangerous place.
Have you ever considered that imagination, creativity, logic, focus, concentration, self-esteem, self-worth, tenacity, resolve? Have you ever considered that those are neuromuscles? We have biceps, triceps, shoulders, chest, buttocks, muscles for your physical body. Have you ever considered that you have neuromuscles? Have you ever considered that creativity is a neuro muscle that you can utilize?
You know, one of the first things that I learned at a thankfully enough, a young age through my mentors was failure is just feedback, and separate you as a human being from what you've tried that fails. So don't connect if you fail at things that there's something wrong with you. Right. So I was fortunate that, you know, I've failed and I've always failed forward. And I said, what's the lesson? What did I learn? And it just made me better. So I've had, you know, a lot of great opportunities for learning.
One of the things that people are, making a big mistake on is they are trying to master a lot of channels like I do right now, when they should be mastering one channel first. So should you master Facebook and creating a little tribe and communities? Should you master advertising on Facebook? Should you master YouTube because you enjoy videos like I do, and creating videos is easy for you, and you can talk about your product, your service, your knowledge, your skills that people want to understand? Because the people who watch YouTube is a very different profile than the person who watches or is on Facebook. And in many cases, the people that are on Facebook aren't paying attention to Instagram, right? So you have to master one thing first based on your knowledge, your skills, and your abilities and your budget, right? So when I go live and do a session here, you know, I have a team that's behind me. I've got people that can manage the controls. Like if I had to manage all the controls and go live on all these channels, that would be difficult for me. But speaking and then getting onto all the channels, that's easy. So which is the channel that you are going to get really good at? Because there's millions of people, prospects, who could want your product or service. And if you're trying to be everything to everyone on all the channels, chances are you're going to diffuse your energy instead of focus your energy. So let me give you an example. Sunlight, right? So if you are outside and it's sunny, you can get a nice little tan, right? But if you take a magnifying glass, hold on, look, where's my magnifying glass? Oh, I have one here somewhere. If you take a magnifying glass, you can take the sunlight and you can take a piece of paper, right? And you can magnify that same energy and burn a hole in the paper. You can take that same sunlight and reduce it to single photons, and you can cut through a laser. So instead of doing a little bit here and a little bit there and a little bit there and a little bit there, why not master?
If you have limiting beliefs, like you're not good enough, not worthy enough, you don't have enough money, knowledge, skills, you're too young, you're too old, neural patterns in your brain is what beliefs are. And we have constructive ones, destructive ones, empowering ones, disempowering ones, positive and negative neural patterns called beliefs. The key is to deactivate the beliefs that disempower you and to create a new belief that matches the vision and goal you have. Then we have the fears that I talked about. I'm going to give you a couple techniques. If you have a fear of having a goal and failing, you're not going to take action, because as soon as that circuit turns on for the failure circuit, which is the fear circuit, and guess what happens? All of the motivation that you had goes out the window, and you either fight, freeze, or flee, meaning running away, doing something else like procrastinate instead of doing what you need to do. So if you have a fear of failure, a fear of success, a fear of being embarrassed, ashamed, ridiculed, or judged, these are going to turn off your motivational centers and activate your fear centers. So I'm not going to leave you hanging without a solution. First and foremost, understand that you and I became conditioned because of our parents, our teachers, television, radio, our experiences, what we heard, what we saw, what meanings we gave things, which means that we became conditioned. We weren't born with any beliefs or fears or self-image challenges. We developed them. And in neuroscience and neuropsychology terms means that we developed the patterns that got reinforced that become the natural easy way for us to be, even though we may not want it. So, what if you wrote down a limiting belief that you had? Okay, I'm not smart enough, not good enough, not worthy, I don't have the money, I don't have the time, I don't have this, I'm too young, I'm too old. Write out whatever you want. And then what if you just created a new language pattern and reframed it and said, in the past, I used to believe, fill in the blank, and now I believe that I am smart enough, I am good enough, I am worthy, I can achieve this, I can find the money, I can upgrade my knowledge, I can upgrade my skills, and I'm excited and enthusiastic to achieve the vision and goal of, and write in the blank. Now, if you wrote that out and you repeated it and emotionalized it and felt it as if you were a Hollywood actor or actress learning a new role, you would activate something called the neuroplasticity switch in your brain that would cause new neurons to connect. And if you reinforced it for the next 100 days by reading it, emotionalizing it, recording it, and listening to it, you would take a new pattern that you wrote out and then you would impress it through spaced repetition. Repetition, okay, is what is required in order to strengthen and reinforce a neural pattern. And practice is what makes permanent. Let me repeat. Practicing a paragraph or an affirmation of what you want is what makes permanent. What that means is it makes the neural network permanent and it replaces the old pattern. It takes 66 days to 365 days to do this. So don't do it for a week going nothing's happening. 66 days to 365 days. That's for limiting beliefs. Slow down and create plans. Let me explain. When I was younger, I would take every single day as a challenge to get as many things as I could done. However, I didn't take the time to really focus on the things that were gonna make the biggest impact in my business. I gave everything the same value. And so, yes, I was busy, yes, I was getting things done, but if I could go back in time, I would focus on what is the plan that's going to move me down the road to achieve the business success that I want faster and easier versus harder and more complex. And now, as I am almost going to be 60, I think about time. And I've done some videos in the past on there's no such thing as time management. All you can do is manage what you do in time. But in order to know what you should do in time, you have to think about what are the objectives that you want to achieve in your business. And in business, there's obviously sales, marketing, finance, management, product development, technology, etc. But there are certain things that you need to do before you do the other things. And what I've discovered is we tend to gravitate towards the things that interest us and are easy for us to do. But business isn't like that. In business, there are critical things that you have to do if you're serious about building a business that actually works for you instead of you working for it. So one of the things that is really, really important is that you take the time to find out what are the building blocks for your type of business, whether you're online or offline.
So I have my vision boards, and I actually have my Exceptional Life Blueprint that I've created. It's about 50 pages of my prayers, my rituals for my spiritual growth, health, wealth, my money story, my inner mission, my outer mission. Wow. Some of the stuff, either that I have or that I'm creating. And so I create these visual representations to trigger the biggest part of my brain called the occipital lobe and to activate my memory center. So I have vision boards for what I want to create. So I'm giving my brain the exact instructions so that not only it focuses helping me achieve that, what most people don't understand about vision boards or creating goals in writing that are specific is that your brain is a deletion and distortion tool as well. So if you give your brain the instruction of this is the stuff that's important to me for health, God, spirituality, charity, fun, experiences, my children, my mother, my father, myself, whatever it is, and you say this is what I want to trade my life for, delete and distort everything else. Now all of a sudden you're using your brain as a deletion and distortion organism in order to be able to help you hyper focus on what you want.
So I got really inquisitive and curious early on with, can I control more of the cause of my results? And that required responsibility. And when I was younger, it was like, I was more into the blame game. It's because of him, because of her, because of it, because of the market, because of where I live, because of my mother, my father, how old I am or how young I am, how Asian or Caucasian I am. It doesn't make a difference.
Yep.
So a lot of my upbringing caused me to look outside of myself. And when I looked inside myself and took the prerequisite of responsibility, I own it.
Yes.
And I can change it.
So important.
That transformed my life. That really started to put things into perspective.
So Mark Waldman, in his little training over here, says 7 days of gratitude exercise. The more you focus on your thoughts, the more your brain becomes habituated to it. The brain tends to pay more attention to negative thoughts. This is based on the instinctual parts of the brain. We can train ourselves to focus on the positives as well. At the end of the day, he says, write down 3 things you feel grateful for and 3 things you did well. This can change your brain. You only have to do it for 7 days and you will see your self-esteem grow for 3 months. So when we are giving you, gratitude things to do, anything we're teaching you to do, it's all based in neuroscience research. And so the more you're grateful, the more you have to be grateful for. The more you train your brain to be grateful, the more it looks and becomes habituated to look for other things to be grateful for. There's Einstein, which represents our left prefrontal cortex, the smart genius part of our brain that has imagination, that can come up with all the ideas of what about this, I can have this, I can have this. But what most people don't understand is we also have, right, a Frankenstein part of our brain, the inner critic, that says, but you're not good enough, you're not smart enough, what if you fail, what if you're embarrassed, what if you're ashamed? So we have this, that's why I have them. There's Einstein and there's Frankenstein, just to remind me and to remind my students that both exist within us. And our goal is to understand that, the way our brain works is there's always a protective side of our brain. So Frankenstein's always going, what if you fail? What if you succeed and fail? What if you disappoint yourself? And Einstein's going, don't worry about it. Imagine the future. And so there's this constant battle in our brains, going on. And our goal, and meditation is one of the best ways to recognize that both exist and both are right. Your Frankenstein part of your brain is there to protect you. Your Einstein brain is ready to help you achieve your goals and dreams. And the key is to remember, you're not your brain. You're not the Einstein part. You're not the Frankenstein part. There's another side of you that is much greater than all of it.
For me, I thought I was afraid of public speaking.
Right.
I thought that was, I would just say I'm a bad public speaker. That was my story. Well, you're absolutely right. What you said, that's what it was. I was afraid of judgment. I was afraid of rejection. And that was what was holding me back.
And these are subconscious patterns, right? So the feeling, is this uncomfortable, just very uncomfortable. It's stressful. It creates anxiety. And so it's not the public speaking. So the question is, where did you learn to have this idea that speaking in public causes you to be embarrassed, ashamed, ridiculed, or judged? And here's what a lot of people will say if you ask them, where did that come from? They'll say, well, when I was a kid in class and, the teacher asked a question and I answered and the answer was wrong, the other kids made fun of me. Or the teacher said, no, that's not the right answer. And they were embarrassed and the other kids ridiculed them. So who the hell wants that? So if our brain is focusing on wiring whatever keeps us safe and whatever keeps pain away, we avoid pain, or we'll do anything to avoid pain way before we do anything to gain pleasure. And so survival first, avoidance of pain second, before we gain pleasure. So if there's any real or imagined danger where we're going to be emotionally hurt, mentally hurt, physically hurt, financially hurt, our brain gives us this signal, be aware. This may be one of those times. It says, be aware, this may be one of those times. And so the cycle, the neural circuit, the cycle shouldn't stop there. But when people haven't been trained on, here are my 6 core emotions, here are my feelings that those emotions cause, and here's what to do. When this emotion is triggered, do this. When this emotion is triggered, do that.
Yep.
And what you want to do is learn when the emotion of fear is triggered, the neurochemistry is adrenaline, cortisol, epinephrine, norepinephrine. That's like this high anxiety rocket fuel within us. Now, in most people, it causes them to just stop, put on the brake. But how is it that a firefighter, could see a building blowing up in front of them, a building crashing down, a raging fire, and yet she musters up the courage to use that fuel from fear and go in? It's because she's been trained.
Yep.
It's because she's been trained.
I tend to be a goal-seeking guy, right? And I used to not celebrate the small stuff. And I used to just like, fuck, bigger goal, more, bigger. And somebody says to me, like, are you going to like slow down just to enjoy some of the stuff that you actually have done for yourself and for people in your family? And I was like, well, let me create an accomplish board.
So good.
Right,
Biggest
so
struggle for me too.
So accomplish board, you passed that test on your own 40 years ago. Celebrate that. You helped this person who was challenged, and celebrate that. You did this for him or for her or for yourself. Celebrate that stuff to remind yourself, because I'm tough on myself. Let's go. It's a goal. Let's go. And sometimes I forget the stuff that I have done, the stuff that I do that I need to remember. So I created an accomplishments board and a list so I can just go to it when I feel like, holy, am I smart enough to achieve that next thing? Am I good enough? What a lot of people don't know, Ed, is
So good.
when I was a kid, I used to feel like I wasn't smart enough. And when I was a kid, it held me back. And today I still feel like I'm not smart enough, and that fuels me to get smarter. So I use it. Like I set big goals. I go, God, I don't have the skills. I don't have the knowledge, but I can figure it out. I've got contacts. I've got friends. And there's books. There's Google. There's YouTube. There's holy mackerel. I don't need to have all the specialized knowledge anymore.
Whenever you're looking to grow spiritually, emotionally, mentally, physically, there's going to be lessons involved. And if you don't learn the lesson, you're going to repeat it. That's number one. But more importantly, when you're doing things on planet Earth in the physical realm, you have to do the right things in the right order at the right time, and nature doesn't care about whether you make mistakes or not. You are going to pay the consequences of those mistakes. And so when we make errors in our judgment, or we make errors in our timing, or we make errors in our tactics, we pay the consequences. And that's just part of the game. And I personally believe that we're playing in a precision model game. And so there's nothing that's out of order in the universe. So if nothing's out of order, my job is to be in resonance with the order that already exists. And that is, for me, resonance or, chaos. So I don't look at it as attraction. I don't think that we attract stuff to us the way most people think about it.
Is that resonance though, because I believe we live in an energetic world, is the resonance based on a frequency or a vibration?
Yeah. So if you sit at the piano and you hit the A440 key, chances are that a chandelier that's in resonance with that is going to start vibrating, even though there's no strings between the two. So through the medium of air, anything that's in resonance is in this attractive state or in this coherence state. By the same token, if you hit the A330 key, you're not going to hit that chandelier frequency. And the same is true with the tuning fork, right? So if you have a tuning fork and you hit a certain key, the tuning fork will start to vibrate. That's resonance. A lot of people think, well, that's attraction. No, it's not attraction. It doesn't work that way from all the research that I have mustered. So my job, and we get into some of the brain stuff, is if you think about a radio. If you turn on a radio and you want to hear or if you want to hear classical music, you might go to 95.5, and it tunes into a frequency that's already here. It's not attracting it, it's already here. If you don't like classical music, you go to 103.3 and you have punk rock. It's already here. So how do we use that as a corollary relationship to, if my brain is the world's most sophisticated electromagnetic switching station, is it possible that I can tune into frequencies of what's already here? And the answer is yes. That's resonance. And so we can tune in on a spiritual, emotional, mental, and physical level. And when you create that coherence, then all of a sudden you start to be in the awareness of everything that's already here that you weren't in coherence with before. And people say, well, I must be attracting it. No, it was already here.
How do you stand out from the competition? I want you to think about this, and this is based on Seth Godin's book called Purple Cow. I want you to imagine you're walking, in the country area, and off in the distance you see a herd of cows. And big deal, there's just cows. But what would you do if one cow was purple? What would you do if one cow was purple? You'd go, holy, look at the purple cow. Let me ask you a question. When people look at your product or your service, your offering, whether it's on your website, your landing pages, radio, television, billboards, when you speak, do they go, holy mackerel, that's unique, that's different, that I have to pay attention to? Right? Do they say that? Right? And so Miriam is saying, I would pay attention to that cow. Right. Why? Because it's different. It's unique. So biggest mistake that people make in 2021 that I want you to stop is I want you to think. But if you just start to think about, what can I do to stand out like a purple cow? That'll put you ahead of 90% of business owners right now, because they don't figure that out. They don't understand that in order to clear through the clutter of all the noise, you have to stand out first. Every single brand has an identity, and the identity comes with it, a certain color, a certain way of being. An identity means something to people, right? So when you are thinking about you as your personal brand, what is the identity of your brand? Right? Is it Mercedes-Benz or Volkswagen? Is it Adidas or Nike? Is it bright colors or dull colors? Every brand has an identity, and you have to choose, when you are building your personal brand, an identity that resonates with who you are. When you're a personal brand, you have to be an authentic you. And so in order for your brand to show up as you, what does your brand say about you? So here are a couple of questions that you may consider. Many of you have followed my work for quite some time. Would you agree that there's a consistent theme about what I teach and how I teach it? Right? Is there a consistent theme around mindset, around skill set, and around action set? Do you notice that if you followed my work, for a year or two or three or four, I specialize on the neuroscience and neuropsychology of success. That's my theme, my underlying theme. If you've noticed, another part of my brand is consistency, right? So I show up every Tuesday, right here at 9:00 Pacific time, which is San Diego, right? So when you are thinking about your personal brand, I want you to take out a sheet of paper and I want you to write down, what does your personal brand look like? If you take a look at, my book, Inner Size, okay, my newest best-selling book, not The Answer, but Inner Size. If you take a look at Having It All, if you take a look at the colors, in my office on the wall, right? Look at that, the colors on the wall. If you take a look at the colors, of my company, NeuroGym, there's a consistency of colors, right? Right? There's a consistency of colors. And so one of the things that you have to understand when you're developing a personal brand is you're developing coherence in somebody's brain around your colors, your theme, what you stand for, what you're all about. And so the first thing to consider when you're developing your personal brand is first to define what is your personal brand.
How specifically am I going to achieve that goal? Like, what are the strategies and the tactics? Meaning, what are you going to do? How specifically are you going to do it? By when? Right? So now when we have, an attitude of goal achievement, of getting clear on the goal, coming up with what I'm going to do on Monday at 9 o'clock, and here's how I'm going to do it, and here's whose help I need. I'm going to put it right into my calendar, and I'm going to take inspired action. And when an obstacle comes in my way, I'm going to ask myself empowering questions like, how can I overcome this obstacle? What can I do to overcome this obstacle? Whose help do I need? What book can I read? What do I need to search on Google? What YouTube video can I watch to overcome this obstacle? Where can I learn better strategies and tactics to make what I do more efficient, more productive, more constructive versus me just working hard and long trying to do what to do? There's a formula called PPP equals PPP, and it goes like this. Piss poor planning equals piss poor performance. And many people, I have found, don't have any real plans for what they're going to do today, this week, this month, this quarter. They show up every morning, okay, without a roadmap to go from where they are to where they want to be by the end of the day. So what are you going to do today to achieve your health goals, your wealth goals, your relationship goals, your career goals, your business goals, your fun goals, the experiences you want, your charitable goals? What are you going to do today or this week to move yourself forward, to make progress every single day? And then what are you going to do to manage your mindset and your emotions? What are you going to do to overcome the obstacles that are in your way, whether they're mental obstacles, physical obstacles, financial obstacles, strategical obstacles, tactical obstacles? Now, you may be watching me right now going, oh my God, there's so much stuff there. Well, yeah, if you want to achieve goals, there's a thinking, there is a feeling, and there's a behavior that gets you there. And there's also a thinking, a feeling, and a behavior that does not get you there. Most people, confuse activity with productivity. They confuse setting goals from achieving goals. They don't understand that you have to create some kind of a roadmap to reduce the resistance and uncertainty and stress and fear and anxiety in your brain so that you activate your motivational centers, the motive for action center in your brain, so that you actually take action instead of repeating your old patterns over and over again. When I first learned about the law of attraction, I was 19 years old. But I was taught that with the law of attraction also is the law of Goya. And nobody talks about the law of Goya. I've been around...
Is that Christian people?
No. No, but the law of Goya is the get off your ass law.
My grandma says, don't marry a Jewish girl. That was the law of Goya.
That's all, the law of Goya, right.
Sorry.
No, the law of Goya is the get off your ass law. Right? And so a lot of people who think about this law of attraction stuff is sit there like a monk, and meditate and visualize and believe and write your goals down, and that's going to happen for you. And it's just raw.
Thank you.
I don't have any friends, zero, that don't bust their ass in pursuit of what they want, in addition to being in resonance with it and attracting it. They are busting their ass every day, every week, every month, every quarter, every year, ups and downs, highs and lows, things that work, things that don't, and they keep moving forward to make it happen. And they find along the way, they get some lucky breaks.
When you're developing new habits, I want you to develop small, repeatable, consistent, easy. Let me repeat. Small, repeatable, consistent, easy things to do for a new habit for 100 days. If you want to become a person who reads a lot, read one sentence or one paragraph a day for 100 days, preferably around the same time. If you want to start exercising to be healthier, I want you to start exercising for 1 minute a day for 100 days, or 30 seconds, or 3 minutes. You choose the minimal possible behavior that you can do to develop the habit. The habit is more important than the intensity at first. You want to reduce all the neurological stress of change. You want to reduce all the neurological processes that are built for you to conserve energy and not develop new habits. So you have to create a new habit loop. And the way you do that is small, repeatable, easy, consistent behaviors for 100 days. Don't worry about anything other than that. If you want to develop a new thought pattern, think in a certain way every day for 100 days and schedule a time. Create your own trigger when you wake up, when you go to sleep, after sex, before the bathroom, before you brush your teeth. Whatever it is, if you can just commit to small little behaviors for 100 days, you'll develop the foundation of a new habit. Where you do the habit, then the habit creates you.
Let me give you an example. What if I said to you, hey, Joel, let's do this business venture together. You put up 20 grand, I'll put up 20 grand. You'll take care of podcasting, sales, marketing, networking. I'll take care of this, this, and that. And let's do this together. We'd probably get excited. Well, what would happen if you start to think about, well, what if it doesn't work? What if I don't deliver this? What if I can't do this? What if I lose my money? What if I do that? And that's a normal discussion to have. And what if I told you, by the way, after we do the deal, here's the way you're going to think. You're going to have a whole bunch of these negative thoughts. You're going to have a whole bunch of these negative emotions. You're going to have a whole bunch of these sensations that you want to move away from. And that's going to be normal. Here's what I want you to do. Flip the switch. Flip from this right prefrontal cortex, which is supposed to do that for you, and let's flip you over to the left prefrontal cortex, which is the genius part of your brain. I'm going to say, okay, great. When that happens, I want you to flip the switch like that and shift over and see both sides. If we do invest together, if we do execute a plan, if we do what we say we're going to do, is it possible that we will hit our income goals, hit our net revenue goals, be able to do this and 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 this. And as soon as you can help somebody make that switch, shift from one part of the brain that's the pessimistic, we call it the Frankenstein part of the brain, and the other side is the optimistic, strategic thinker that can connect to all possibilities at all times, and that's the left prefrontal cortex, and that's where the genius part of you is. And that's why I have Mr. Albert Einstein there to always remind me, activate left prefrontal cortex and be aware of right prefrontal cortex, which is, for the most part, just bringing up memories from my 55 years on this planet, the good, the bad, and the ugly.
Yeah, so it's a Frankenstein and the Einstein. I like it.
When Einstein is working, you are dreaming in the world of possibilities. How can I? What can I do? Who can I talk to? How will it work? What should I read? Who should I network with? What are the possibilities? What are the tools I need? What are the resources I need? And all the possibilities open up. Pay myself first. Let me explain. When I first started RE/MAX of Indiana, even though money was coming into the company, I wasn't taking any money out. And I worked for months and years on end, just putting everything back in the business. And that created a lot of stress in the early years. And so what I would do differently now is I would value myself more, and I would take an income or take a percentage of the revenues on an ongoing basis so that I got paid for the services that I provided to my business. Now, when you put yourself up on the pedestal where you deserve and you pay yourself, you actually build your self-confidence, you build your self-worth, you build your self-esteem, and you get paid for the services rendered. When you pay everybody else first, you are putting everybody else in front of you, and you are the number one person that you need to keep motivated. And it doesn't matter how much it is that you pay yourself, it has to be something for the effort and the work that you do. So at least you build your own self-worth and value.
A lot of times when we are focusing on what we've lost or what we're losing, we're not focusing on what we've gained. A lot of times we're focusing, on what's possible as a result of this. We tend to monofocus, right, on either good or bad. I like it, I don't like it. It tastes good, it doesn't. It's hurting me, it's not. Well, what if you could learn how to observe both? What if you could observe the law of polarity in its entirety that says you cannot have an electron without a proton, an in without an out, an up without an down. You cannot have that on this planet, in this universe. So is it possible that with just a little bit of training, whether it's mindfulness or meditation or awareness, you can be sad, you can grieve, and be joyful and happy at the same time? See, it's when we are afraid that we're losing something that we've got that Frankenstein brain of ours saying, what if, what if, what if, what if, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. And when we are in that state, we can't be focused on what are we going to do about it. Now, in a grieving state like with my mother, the only thing I want to do about it is make sure that we respect and honor her life and my brothers and sisters and my dad, etc. So I need to focus on that. And when we're talking about, a business going under, a relationship, that's unraveling right now, if you're focusing on all of the disempowering emotions and circumstances, you cannot be focusing on the solution to that possible problem. So you have to learn how to manage the emotions. And for those of you who don't know what that's like, I want you to imagine I just got really mad and that's so funny. A Hollywood actor or actress learns that they are not their emotions, they have emotions. Now, everybody's going to grieve differently, but I want people to understand that you don't have to be disempowered in grief. You can be empowered in grief. And everybody's going to do it differently. And some people are going to go inside, some will go outside. But we have the ability to frame things in ways that empower us and gives us the best chance to move forward instead of being a victim of it. And all I'm saying is consider that you have way more power than you are displaying in your emotional management, in your focus, in your awareness, and in your behavior. And you can feel the entire spectrum of emotions. Totally cool with that. But are you being constructive versus destructive in your behaviors?
Cognitive priming, right? So what's cognitive priming? So think about this. When a baby is learning how to eat, okay, what does, mommy or daddy do? Mommy or daddy, takes the spoon and, she puts it in the jar. She pretends to eat it herself. And then she puts it into the baby's mouth. Open the mouth. And she puts it, and she does that to cue the baby's brain of what to do. So she pretends she's doing it herself. She gets the baby to do it. And through this repetition, a baby will learn spoon in the hand, in the jar. Spoon has food on it. Mommy's opening her mouth. She's bringing it to me. Open my mouth. I put the food in my mouth. Oh, this yummy thing feels so good. Yum, 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 right? And mommy and daddy go, num, 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 num. So eat this food. And so if you think about what's actually happening, we're getting the motor cortex of her brain going. We're getting her taste buds going. You know, at a certain point, we'll put the spoon in her mouth and put her hand in the jar so that she could do it for herself. So we're priming her through visual cues, through auditory cues, through taste cues, right? Through all of the different senses, we're priming her brain, and then we're reinforcing it day after day after day after day to create the neural network, the connections in the brain that if I want that yummy food in my mouth, I have to learn how to take the spoon in my hand, put it in the jar, get it all over the place initially until I could do it without spilling it all over the place. Well, that takes, you know, weeks and months and years to tie your shoes, to learn how to eat, to learn how to brush your teeth.
All these things that are automatic now. Yes.
All the things that are automatic now. So before something's automatic, it's not.
Yeah, and it can feel really uncomfortable.
Right. So let's take a disempowering belief that you have. I'm not good enough. I'm not smart enough. I'm too young. I'm too old. I'm female. I'm male. Whatever it is, you have a disempowering belief. It's nothing more than a pattern in the brain. So somehow, a pattern that wasn't there before got there. Right? Who told you that? Your parents, your teachers, your brother, your sister, your best friend said, you'll never amount. Or like, who did that? It's really irrelevant. But if the pattern is there and it's a dominant pattern because you've believed it for 20, 30, 40 years, whatever the case might be, and it's been reinforced, what does brain science say about how do I get rid of it? And it says, well, you'll never get rid of it, but you can deactivate it.
Okay.
How do I deactivate
I like
it?
where this is going.
Right? How do I deactivate it? So every time I catch myself saying I'm not good enough, or fill in the blank, take any limiting belief, and anytime you catch yourself saying it or feeling it, what if you said to yourself, stop? In the past, I used to believe that, and now I believe I'm more than good enough. In the past, I used to feel like I'm too young, but now I can use my age as a benefit to achieve that goal. Any limiting belief, we can do one of a couple things. We can say, in the past, I used to. And so what we're doing is we're not saying, no, stop that. We're not reinforcing a limiting belief by trying to fight it. We acknowledge it's just a pattern.
Embracing it.
And just say, in the past, I used to believe that, and now here's what I'm choosing to believe. So now what I'm doing is I'm taking an existing neural pattern and I'm changing the pattern. I'm taking away its energetic force by adding new words that I'm choosing now versus the ones that were given to me or the ones that I felt when I was too young to actually change it on my own then. So now I'm paying attention to my self-talk. I'm paying attention to the inner critic.
Let's say, you and I are buddies. We want to start a business, or we have a business. Come on, let's crush it. All right, let's do this thing. Let's triple our income this year. Let's make 30% more net revenues. Let's travel the world. Let's live this lifestyle that's amazing. And we get excited. Right? So we go, oh yeah, oh my God, that's great. Let's do this. High fives all around. Dopamine's released. We feel great. We shared with our friends. We release oxytocin. So we bonded. Oh my God, I love you and you love me. And we feel great. We're going to conquer the world. And that happens all the time. But let's say that underneath the hood, there's a fear of, I'm not smart enough, or I'm not good enough, or what if I fail and I embarrass myself? What if I succeed and I can't maintain it? What if I'm ridiculed because I try so hard and my friends will laugh at me? There are 50 different types of fears that are almost in everybody's memory bank that gets brought up to the surface. And when the fear circuit lights up, which is, bam, automatically within either moments, hours, or days when you start realizing, holy, what is it going to really take to double or triple my income and to take the time off that I want? As soon as that happens, when the fear circuit lights up, then the system, the neuroelectrical chemical system floods with epinephrine, cortisol, and norepinephrine. What is that? Those are just 3 of the 100 chemicals in the brain that are part of the stress response system. Whenever you and I and everybody watching or listening thinks about or feels that there is potential danger, potential pain, whether it's emotional pain like being embarrassed or ashamed, or financial pain like not being able to have enough money to pay for my food or for my burger or for my cocktails or for my rent or my car or my airline ticket. If there is real or imagined possibility of discomfort, pain, the brake on motivation slams shut and we start to procrastinate. So we have this incredible system that can give us this motivation, the motive for action to go forward, but we have to temper it with our ability to recognize the trigger and the sensation in our body called a feeling that the non-conscious processing part of the brain that gives us this emotion called fear. All fear is processed at the non-conscious level of your awareness and then gives rise into the frontal lobes of the feeling that your body has. The average person that has not been trained feels fear and puts the brake on and goes and retreats into what they're comfortable doing. The successful person, either they may be genetically wired to understand feeling fear and doing it anyway, and turning their fear into fuel, but that's not the majority of people. That's why 90+% of people fail and stay in that position. But you can take that fuel, that hypersensitive rocket fuel, I call it, and utilize it to actually motivate you faster, further than you ever got before.
Yeah.
Fascinating systems. If you don't know how to use them, too bad. It's like not knowing that a gun has got bullets in it and you pull the trigger. You go, holy, just blew my brains out. Not that you'd be able to, say that. They'd be like game over. But ignorance is not your friend when it comes to neurochemistry. At the time, I was 22 years old, trying to work, trying to make money, and I wanted to figure out what was causing my ulcerative colitis, because the ulcerative colitis was an effect. Right, so I was wondering what was causing it, and what I realized was causing it was a lot of stress, the wrong foods, too much alcohol, no exercise, etc. So I said, okay, well, how could I heal myself? And at the time, I was taking 25 pills a day. I was doing enemas in the morning, enemas at night, and going to the hospital once a month for them to stick a tube in my rectum to see what was happening in my colon. Not fun at 22 years old. It's like, what the front door, right? And so I said, okay, let me see if I could really heal myself. And so I wrote an affirmation. I wish I had it here because I'd read it to you. It says, my body and all its organs were created by the infinite intelligence in my subconscious mind. It created all my bones, tissues, muscles, liver, lungs, heart, and everything else within me. It knows how to heal me. I am now perfectly healthy. That's a short version of that. And every day, in addition to eating well, exercising, sleeping well, I would read this affirmation. I would close my eyes. I would see my colon healed. I would see my colon sick. I'd see my colon healed. I'd see my colon sick. I'd see my colon healed. That's called mental contrasting in the world of neuroscience. And so I would see this over and 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 over in my brain. I would read it. I would feel it. I would see it. 5 weeks of doing this, after 2.5 years of being sick, all of my symptoms went away. 100%. When I went in to see my doctor, his name was Dr. Wu, he said to me, you've had a spontaneous remission. I said, it's not a spontaneous remission. It was a deliberate remission. That was 36 years ago. All right. And the doctor says, whatever you're doing keep doing it. He says, but I want you to still take the pills. I was taking 25 pills a day. I said to him, I said, Dr. Wu, you don't understand, do you? I said, I fixed the cause. You still want to treat the symptom. Right? And so I have shown people how to get off of colitis, Crohn's disease, diverticulitis. Our body is consistently remanifesting itself based on our thoughts, emotions, feelings, sensations, and behaviors. So what if, everyone watching, what if I could be in a vibration mentally, heart-wise, right, emotionally, and gut-wise? So heart, brain, heart, and gut. What if I can create alignment so that I am in a state of health? So my body is regenerating healthy cells. My body is regenerating, or activating energy from my mitochondria. What if I could be in this alignment with the flow of health versus a flow of dis-ease? So for you, what happens with most people is they're focusing on their dis-ease or their pain instead of channeling their attention and energy and focusing on health and well-being. So the more you say, my neck is broken, I got a little thing on my neck, it's painful on my neck, the doctors say I can't, this is impossible, the more you keep reinforcing the cellular activity that reinforces that. Well, when the fear signal has kicked in, all right, it's releasing the neurochemicals, like I said, epinephrine, cortisol, norepinephrine, which is adrenaline. And some of it's good. Too much of it will cause you to fight, to freeze, to flee, run away, or to faint. Those are the 4, possible outcomes for the stress response or fear response system when it kicks in. So when that switch is turned on, think of it as a light switch that just turned on in your brain, and then there's a cascade, of neurochemicals that causes a feeling. If you focus on the feeling, then you're going to think about what you feel, then you're going to feel what you think about, and you create this self-fulfilling doom loop of neurochemicals being rushed in your body. And if you do that every day, every week, every month, over and over again, you've now just set up a doom loop habit where that fear is going to drive your thoughts and emotions and behaviors or lack thereof. But what I want you to do is recognize the fear calmly. And you do this as soon as you recognize the fear that you can bring up on your own. You do the first inner size, inner size, exercise for your physical body and your organs, inner size for your neuromuscles. All right. So when you feel fear, be in observation of it like the light comes on in the dash of your car. And then what you do is you take 6 deep breaths, but here's how you do it. In through your nose, out through your mouth like you're blowing out of a straw. So it goes like this. 6 breaths, 10 seconds each. Ready? Deep rhythmic breaths in, up in the lungs. Expand the diaphragm so you get the diaphragm and the lungs expanding. And you breathe out like you're breathing through a straw. So you focus the energy out through the mouth. It causes your brain to actually get oxygenated. And guess why you want that? Well, when we're in a state of fear, we activate, the vagus nerve, which constricts your blood flow. It slows down your heartbeat. It causes shallow breathing. So as soon as you alternate from that fear and stress response system to the calm, from the stress and react system to the calm and response system, your brain shuts off the fear circuit and activates the left prefrontal cortex, and when you can think, because blood flow goes back there again. So if fear is holding you back, there's nothing wrong with fear, but there just may be a lack of skill of knowing when or what to do. Does this make sense so far? Does this make sense so far? So when you take those 6 deep rhythmic breaths, that is what deactivates that stress response system in the brain and activates the relax and respond. You want to be in a responsive state as much as possible versus a reactive state. One of the, most unbelievable discoveries of the last 100 years is that our brain can create new neural connections, new beliefs, new habits, new perceptions, new neuromuscles and reinforced neuromuscles. And so if you look at the problem, she says, with curiosity and with this approach, she says a lot of people focus on debt and they go, oh my God, look at the debt I'm in. How am I going to get out? Here's the problem. I can't pay this. I can't do this. She goes, now when you sit down and you look at the debt and you write down, you brainstorm how to get out of debt and make more wealth, and write down every idea that you can come up with, she goes, you activate the creativity neuromuscle. And the more you practice it, the more you teach yourself how to focus on the solution instead of the problem, the more you're flipping your neuroplasticity switch, but the more you're flipping on your curiosity, imagination, and creativity circuits. Training your brain is so critical. You can train your brain to be aware, acutely aware of your senses, of what are my sensations? What's my heartbeat doing right now? What's my breathing doing right now? Am I anxious and nervous and stressed? Is my sympathetic nervous system activated? Or am I calm, relaxed, able to think clearly? Can I respond instead of being in this reactive state? That's a skill. When the sympathetic nervous system has kicked in, you're in your flight or fight response mechanism. So you're breathing shallowly, you're tense, your heartbeat's elevated, you might feel like you're sweating a little bit and it's just tense. And parasympathetic is calm, observe, pay attention, be aware, be mindful, choose deliberately versus reactively.
If somebody's unhappy, could you teach yourself to be happy in less than 3 seconds? And the answer is yes, if you chose to.
So control of emotions.
Control of emotions. Yeah. And so when we focus on the core emotions people have of happiness, sadness, shame, disgust, contempt, love, we can learn how to switch between those on any given moment. But most people, what happens, they get caught up in this emotion, energy and motion that's negative or disempowering, and then they think about how they feel, and they feel what they're thinking about, and they keep perpetuating the same pattern, and that's not where it ends. And this is where the problem lays, is if you do that on a regular basis, your brain says, since you're repeating this, let me just make this a habit, and I'll just create that on command for you, so you're in that state more frequently.
Let's say you have a goal. Okay, any goal, a financial goal, a travel goal, a net worth goal, have my own blog post or blog and have a tribe follow me goal. And that's your vision and your goal that you've consciously chosen. But then beneath the surface, you feel, am I really worthy of that? Am I really good enough? Am I really smart enough? Do I really deserve that? Anytime you have a vision or a goal that is positive and fun and amazing, but there is a subconscious negative or disempowering pattern like self-esteem, self-worth, or self-image, the negative disempowering pattern wins 98% of the time.
Wow.
So if you think about the positive vision and goal as being the positive, if we have the positive and the negative, we have chaos in the brain. And what we really want to create more of is coherence. So what's coherence? Well, imagine you, if everybody just think about going to your favorite band. Your favorite band's coming to town, all right? And you are so excited because you just love to hear them. But their drummer or their lead vocalist or their guitarist got sick a few days ago and they had to get somebody else to play, tonight when you're going to see them play. And they haven't had a chance to practice together. And this new band member is just not in tune with everybody else. There's going to be chaos. It's like, oh, he's off. The vocals are off, or the piano's off, or the guitar is off. It just doesn't sound right or feel right.
Then the whole thing's off.
It's off. So it's like the experience is like there's no harmony here, right? So when people's vision or goals are out of harmony with their subconscious self-esteem or fears or limiting beliefs, there's chaos and there's too much friction. And in the absence of friction, you have smooth. But when there's friction there, it's just not smooth. It's not in harmony.
It's like a muscle. Your brain has neuromuscles.
Okay.
Right. So if you think about, if we want to build our bicep muscle or our chest or our shoulders or our legs, we go to the gym, we do exercises, or we go and hike or run or bike or walk or do whatever it is. Well, what do you do to strengthen your confidence muscle? What do you do to strengthen your self-esteem muscle? What do you do to strengthen your tenacity or resolve muscle? What do you do to strengthen any of your core neuromuscles like awareness? How do you strengthen your awareness? How do you strengthen your ability to focus and stay laser disciplined on an achievement of a goal? These are all neuromuscles that you can strengthen. So the first exercise that you teach anybody, it's kind of like learning the alphabet first. So take 6, calm the circuits. There's 3 foundational exercises we teach in the book. There's many more. But the first one is just to deactivate the stress reactive center in the brain. And you do that through 6 deep breaths in 10-second increments. So you take a deep breath in through your nose. And then as you blow out, pretend you're blowing out through a straw. So all of your energy is towards that focus. Ready? So 3, 2, 1. You do that 6 times, and we can see in brain scan images that the stress response center lowers and in many cases deactivates, which throws blood back to the left prefrontal cortex. Your state of awareness increases, and then you can move to exercise number 2, which is called AIA, A-I-A, which is now in a calm, relaxed state. Now, the first A stands for awareness of my thoughts, emotions, feelings, sensations, and what have been my behaviors for, let's say, the last 5 minutes or hour. Awareness without shame, blame, guilt, justification, or judgment. Pure awareness. Calm state. Then what is my intention? Well, my intention is to be happy. I've been feeling sad. My intention is to be happy. My intention is to be focused, not scattered. Great. Let me give myself 1 or 2 intentions. Then the next A stands for what's one action to move me towards that. So if your intention is to be happy, why not look up and smile? Just look up and smile, because when you look up and smile, you release the neurochemistry of happiness, and you cannot look up and be angry, sad, mad, disappointed. You cannot. And if you look up and smile, we are wired to look up to heaven, let's say, and be hopeful. And we are wired that when we smile, the neurochemistry of happiness is firing through our bloodstream. Wow. And so if you just do exercise number 1 and 2, now you get awareness and you calm down the circuits. And then if you learn exercise number 3, it's called actors. It's called actors. No, hold on a second. I'm losing exercise number 3.
Focus.
It is called. It'll come back to me in just a moment. But the third exercise is around, it's an actor's studio exercise. Basically, it's an exercise. So any actor in the world can switch from being happy or sad or mad or disappointed or any modality of physiology that you want them to take on. They can command it on command. Right? And so if somebody's unhappy, could you teach yourself to be happy in less than 3 seconds? And the answer is yes, if you chose to.
So control of emotions.
Control of emotions. Yeah. And so when we focus on the core emotions people have of happiness, sadness, shame, disgust, contempt, love, we can learn how to switch between those on any given moment. But most people, what happens, they get caught up in this emotion, energy and motion that's negative or disempowering, and then they think about how they feel, and they feel what they're thinking about, and they keep perpetuating the same pattern. And that's not where it ends. And this is where the problem lays, is if you do that on a regular basis, your brain says, since you're repeating this, let me just make this a habit. And I'll just create that on command for you. So you're in that state more frequently. And then they don't know how to interrupt that pattern and create a new empowered state.
Stop buying into the fear that's happening in the marketplace right now. Coronavirus, fear, high alert, fear. What if I get it? What if I don't? If I get fired? Are people buying? Are people not buying? Fear, fear, fear. What if negative? Oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. What if I get laid off? What if I succeed and then fail? What if it doesn't work? What if I disappoint myself? Stop buying into the fear. I want you to imagine this. Almost 8 billion humans, okay? 8 billion humans on Earth. Not everybody is into the fear. Not everybody can't afford stuff. Not everybody is in jeopardy, whether it's their business or financially. Now, I understand a lot of people are hurting, so I don't want to take away from that, okay? Yes, there are a lot of people hurting. Some of those people that are hurting have money, some don't, some are scared, some are not. So what I want you to understand is whatever your own mindset is about what's happening out there is what you are creating in here. There are plenty of people who want what you have, your product, your service, your knowledge, your skill, whatever it is that you can offer them. Maybe this group doesn't want it right now. Maybe this group can't afford it right now. But if you're focusing on this group and this group, you're missing this group that needs it and wants it right now more than any other time. So your job, and this goes back to my point number one, is you have to stand out in all of your marketing, because if you don't, the group that's actually looking for you can't see you in the noise. If there is real or imagined possibility of discomfort, pain, the brake on motivation slams shut and we start to procrastinate. So we have this incredible system that can give us this motivation, the motive for action to go forward, but we have to temper it with our ability to recognize the trigger and the sensation in our body called a feeling, that the non-conscious processing part of the brain that gives us this emotion called fear. All fear is processed at the non-conscious level of your awareness and then gives rise into the frontal lobes of the feeling that your body has. The average person that has not been trained feels fear and puts the brake on and goes and retreats into what they're comfortable doing. The successful person, either they may be genetically wired to understand feeling fear and doing it anyway, and turning their fear into fuel, but that's not the majority of people. That's why 90+% of people fail and stay in that position. But you can take that fuel, that hypersensitive rocket fuel, I call it, and utilize it to actually motivate you faster, further than you ever got before. But it all starts with being self-observing, awareness of when I'm uncomfortable, how do I respond? When I'm doubtful, how do I feel? When I've got negative self-talk going on, what's going on? When I'm procrastinating, what am I fearful of? Most procrastination, by the way, is done because of low self-esteem. If you knew how to get something done, you could do it highly effectively and on time, and you were loving it, you'd do it. But most people procrastinate because they feel doubtful. They don't have all the information. They're procrastinating because they're worried that if they don't do it perfectly, somebody's going to judge them. Creating irresistible offers. Creating irresistible offers. What does that mean? Well, it means that your greatest cost of acquiring a new customer is the first sale. And so have you considered that you can afford to create an irresistible offer to get people in to buy your first product or service? Now, whenever we are dealing with creating irresistible offers, let's say you're selling a pen, okay? You're selling a pen, okay? Well, you can sell the pen, let's say for $1, right? But what if you sold the pen, and in addition to the pen, when you buy it right now, you also get 3 videos on how to be a better writer, 3 videos on how to take ideas from your head and craft them in such a way that people will be drawn to what you write. Now, a pen can be sold as a commodity, or you can create an irresistible offer by saying, not only am I going to give you the pen, but here are some added value things that you can use or need, all right, when you buy my pen. Now, why would you do that? Can you imagine why you would do that? Well, the hardest sale is the first one. And here's the thing that I want you to remember. When you trust a brand, and when the brand has a product or a service that meets or exceeds your expectations, do you continue to buy from that brand? If the brand exceeds or meets your expectation, do you buy more from that brand? Chances are you do. So what does that mean? It means that all of the time and energy and money that you spent to acquire that new customer, you don't have to pay for that acquisition cost. So when you acquire a customer and you deliver or over deliver, not only do they keep coming to buy from you, but chances are when they are so happy with what you've done for them, don't you tell your friends or your family? So now we have repeat business and we have referrals, both of which cost almost no more money. The first 3 that she gives are reason. And so the first of the 6 steps in Rewire Your Brain is reason. And she says, if you don't give your brain a reason why, like why do you want to do this? Why must you do this? It won't actually want to do the work. So if you don't have a reason why, it'll take the path of least resistance and come up with the reasons why you shouldn't faster. So that's number 1. Second E, or second step to refire, is engage. And she says, when you set a goal, she says, engage, immerse yourself in your goal and why you want to achieve that goal, and then get support from a group or a mentor to keep you engaged as you level up your knowledge and your skills and your behaviors. The third of her refire to rewire out of the 6-step process is feel. And she said, get your emotions behind your goal. She says, when you get your emotions behind your goal, by thinking about all the benefit of everything you're going to gain, who you're going to become, who you're going to be able to help, how you're growing, when you get the emotion behind it and you engage and you have your reason why, the emotion is the energy put into motion that is required to get the momentum and keep the momentum going. Is consistency across all of your assets. So your business card, your landing pages, your ads, everything that you can do, create that brand awareness and those colors and tie it into your name. Why? Well, there's something about our brain that creates associations. So when you see my face and you see the colors of my books and you see the colors on my wall and you see, our ads or our free content or videos, there's a consistent theme around colors, and our brain makes that connection across all the channels. So when you're building your personal brand, be thoughtful around what does your personal brand stand for? Then what are the colors? There could be sounds. There's a lot of sounds. Companies use sounds, all right, to add to the color scheme, to add to the theme. So when we are creating any type of messaging, we want there to be something that we call banner to buyer consistency. Banner to buyer consistency, which actually is going to be the fourth point. So I'll come back to that in just a moment. So I see all of your colors. Yeah, when people, our brain takes snapshots, obviously, to create cells of recognition. And when our brain sees consistent colors over and over and over again, it makes the associations, and every single color means something different to somebody else. So I'm always looking for consistency around all of my content.
I know in my particular case, I didn't believe I wasn't smart enough, because when I moved at 5 years old from Israel to Montreal, I spoke Hebrew. I didn't read Hebrew or write it, but I spoke it. I was just learning the alphabet. I was put into a classroom with 50 kids, all speaking French, and English was the second language they were all speaking. So I was sat there for 2 years looking at the wall. And not only did I feel stupid, I remember, I'm 55 now, so this is 50 years ago. I remember kids spitting on me in the playground because I couldn't speak English. So I'd get into fights all the time. I'd end up in the principal's office. My parents would be called into school. Your son's not doing well in school. He's having fights with the other kids. And I was frustrated. And the teachers didn't have time to work with me on teaching me a language. God, I didn't know the alphabet. So I was 2 years behind for my entire schooling up until grade 11 when I quit. I said, enough is enough. So I had developed this belief that I wasn't smart enough. Holy shit, where'd that come from? Now I know I'm brilliant, and I'm not saying that in an egotistical way, but I study quantum physics, I study neuroscience, study neuropsychology. I love it, and I can understand it. But the point I want to make is I developed this pattern in my brain that I wasn't good enough just because of my experience as a 5-year-old. And I carried that on for about 15 years until I was 19. And I had a mentor, ask me, why do I think I left school? Why do I think I was getting in trouble? Why was I working for $2.30 an hour when I clearly could speak and talk and communicate? And I said, well, they told me I wasn't going to amount to much. They told me if I didn't get a college degree, I wasn't going to be smart enough to get a job at a company, and I wouldn't have any retirement. I wouldn't have any ability to contribute. I couldn't make enough money to take care of myself and my family. So I believed what the people that I'm supposed to believe told me. So I developed this neuron cluster around my own self-belief that I was not smart enough. And as a result of that, I couldn't do well in the real world. So what did I do? From 12 to 17, I lied, stole, cheated, sold drugs, did break-in and entries, did counterfeit money, whatever I could to make money, because everybody told me you couldn't. So I figured out a way I could. And then I met one man, who showed me that I could change my brain. He showed me that I could develop a new cluster of beliefs, that I am good enough, I am worthy enough, I am smart enough, I can achieve what I want to achieve, I can learn, and it's easy for me. I can earn any amount of money I choose. I can learn whatever I need to learn to earn any amount of money I choose. And so I started at 19 doing daily affirmations. I recorded my affirmations. I listened to them for 2-3 hours a day in my car as I was driving. I wrote out my goals. I recorded my goals. I was taught how to create a new imprint into my non-conscious brain, which is where your beliefs are anyway. And I started to repattern, rescript, and reshape my belief patterns, my perception of what's possible. And while I was doing that, my mentor says, great, let's upgrade your knowledge and your skills so we raise your level of confidence and certainty. I want you to read this book. I want you to listen to this audio. I want you to do this. I want you to practice 1 hour a day on your skills so you get better. So as I raised my self-confidence and my certainty and my belief in myself
and I developed some good habits. Boom, one thing started clicking after another. At 19, I made $31,000. At 20, I made $151,000. At 26, I started building my own company and did $1 billion in sales 4 years later. So what are you focusing on? Are you focusing on why you can't? Are you focusing on it's not the right time? Are you focusing on I don't have the time, the money, the energy, the knowledge, the skills? People aren't buying right now. People aren't buying right now. Things are so bad. What if this happens? What if that happens? Oh my God, what if that happens? If you're in a state of fear, then your Einstein brain's turned off and your Frankenstein brain's turned on. And in a state of fear, you deactivate motivation, you deactivate behavior that is required to take action right now. So what you want to do is you have to master your mindset, right? You have to stop buying into the fear mongering on television and radio and so many other places. You have to focus on how you can achieve your financial goals and your business goals, because you must, and because you will, and because you deserve it. I want you to just begin writing out a new money story. And I want you to do this. Start off your new money story like this. I'm so grateful and happy for the fact that I am now, and fill in the blanks, feeling, doing, experiencing, having, giving. Just write out a little story of your money story. And then what I want you to do every day for the next just 7 days, for 5 minutes, I want you to read that new money story, even though it's not real right now. And then I want you just to imagine, what would it be like if this was real right now? What would it be like? And I want you to feel that. Just use that as step one and see what happens. What will happen is you're going to do two things. Number one, you're going to get excited, which is great, but you also may hear this little voice that says, that's not true. You're not this. You can't that. And I want you to be aware of it without judging it, blaming it, shaming it, or justifying it. Just be aware of it and go, holy mackerel, listen to that little inner critic that is trying to hold me back. So let's say you have some free stuff here. Let's say, you're talking about, Ginsu knives, but then over here, you're trying to sell, siding for a house. There has to be a banner to buyer consistency around what it is that you are doing and offering. So if you're going to be talking, let's say I'm talking about, personal branding to build an income producing business. If I was to all of a sudden say to you, hey, does anybody want to go to Egypt with me, to look at the pyramids? You'd be scratching your head going, why was he talking about branding and then asked me to go to Egypt? If I wanted to take you to Egypt, I'd be talking about, the Great Pyramids and the mystical, theme around that, and then maybe say that. So whenever you are building your brand, make sure that you're creating. Banner means any content that you put out, whether it's videos, ads, infographics, or anything else, right? Make sure that there is consistency all the way through to what you might be offering somebody. If you don't, you create brand confusion. Do you know what I'm talking about? So you want to stand for something and you want to create consistency. Now, that doesn't mean that you can't have different product lines. So I'll give you an example. I have a winning the game of business program. I also have a winning game of weight loss program. But I wouldn't be talking to business owners about business growth and then say, do you want to look at my winning the game of weight loss program? If I was doing a session on weight loss, or what I prefer to call is weight release, and the science and the evidence of why people lose weight and gain weight, then it would make logical sense to offer a weight loss program. So make sure that you have banner to buyer consistency across every one of your channels. Does that make sense? Don't be doing one thing one day and another thing the other day and another thing the other day and another thing the other day. Being an adaptationist. Being an adaptationist. So I want you to be a mental adaptationist. I want you to be an emotional adaptationist. I want you to be a business adaptationist. Because when you become a business adaptationist and a mindset and emotional adaptationist where you adapt and adopt to the circumstances, you control the environment instead of allowing the environment to control you. Mindset is what separates the best from the rest, right? Yes or yes. Mindset is what separates the best from the rest, right?
Now I've got a really special bonus clip that I think you're going to enjoy. But before that, it's time for the question of the day. I want to know, what was your single biggest takeaway from this video and your plan of action for the next week? The science says that when you just watch a video, you get motivated, you get inspired, you have a 35% chance of following through on your goals. 35%! That's not enough. That's not enough just to get motivated. Believe Nation, we're here, you're here. Today matters. You're an action taker. When you commit to a plan of action of when and how you're going to follow through, when you write it down, you have a 91% chance of following through. And when you commit publicly to somebody else, it jumps to 95% chance. From 30-something% to 95% chance of you following through. Believe Nation, we need to make this happen. So question of the day, your single biggest takeaway from this video and your plan of action specific for the next week. Put it down in the comments below, and I'm going to show on screen sometime next week to celebrate you.
If somebody has, a fear, like where is that fear? If I have a fear of spiders and you don't, then that means that it's not the spider, okay, that's the issue. It's the meaning, the pattern that I have and the associations I have with, let's say, spiders, that's the issue. Well, where is that pattern? Well, it's in my non-conscious brain. It's in my brain. Well, what if I can disrupt that pattern using technology? What if I can disrupt that pattern using a variety of evidence-based methodologies, whether it's cognitive behavior therapies that you listen to and you participate in? Well, that is what we're doing. We're just helping people access the parts of their brain where the patterns exist, disrupt the pattern, help them create a new pattern so that the fear goes away. The emotion of fear is an effect, right? It's a feeling. So if we disrupt the pattern, we disrupt the unpleasant feeling that we call fear. So we've learned a variety of different ways that are all based in neuroscience and neuropsychology to disrupt patterns, create new patterns faster than ever before, so that people start to feel better about themselves and about anything that they want to achieve in their life.
If you want to see my one-on-one interview with John Assaraf, check it out right there next to me. I think you'll love it. Continue to believe, and I'll see you there. Do you think I can heal my broken neck with meditation? When doctors say it's not going to connect, do you think I can manifest that connection happening with that bone that broke off?
Yes.